Lorraine was taken aback by Cady's excited words as she handed her the test result. Congratulations! You're pregnant, Lorraine. You're 1 month pregnant with Kalisto's baby. I'm so happy for you. Her jaw dropped in surprise. I'm pregnant. Yes. You're now experiencing mild pregnancy symptoms, and it's nothing serious. Actually, you're a bit late in feeling the symptoms, but rest assured, everything is fine with your pregnancy. Your body is healthy, you just need to maintain it that way. Exiting the hospital quickly, her lips pressed together in a mix of joy and disbelief. Her heart raced as she located their parked car. Jake, let's go. She eagerly called out to her driver as she settled into the back seat of the car. Yes, ma'am, let's head straight to my parents' mansion instead of going home, Jake. Her sweetest smile couldn't be contained as the car pulled away. Her heart pounded with anticipation as if it might burst from her chest. Filled with excitement, she reached for her cell phone in her bag to call her husband. The first call was declined, but on the second attempt, he answered swiftly, brightening her smile even more. Why are you calling? He greeted her coldly, unfazed by his tone. That's just how he spoke. Honey, are you still busy? I thought you'd be coming home tomorrow. Aren't you done with your business trip? It was supposed to end yesterday, right? Have you packed your things yet? She questioned one after another. She heard him sigh. I'm still busy now. Let's talk tomorrow when I get back, he said, abruptly ending the call. Oh, she sighed, looking at the screen of her cell phone. But she didn't dwell on it because of the overwhelming happiness she felt. She knew that Kalisto, as the owner of a prestigious company, was always tied up with work and frequent business trips. She understood that as his company grew, he had less time to spend at their mansion. Initially, she felt a pang of sadness when he only allocated a few hours for her, but she had gotten used to it. She knew he was doing it for their future, especially for their future children. With that thought, her excitement grew even more. A tingling sensation ran through her body. She couldn't contain the good news any longer. She couldn't wait until she had someone to share it with. Since Kalisto will only be coming home tomorrow, why not inform her parents first that she's pregnant? She's sure they would be thrilled. Even though this wouldn't be their first grandchild, she knew they would still be excited. As soon as Kalisto will only be coming home tomorrow, why not tell her parents first that she's pregnant? She's sure they would be thrilled. Even though this wouldn't be their first grandchild, she knew they would still be excited. Her younger sister, Amber, had already gotten pregnant and had a child 4 years ago. Unfortunately, she didn't know who the father was, so her niece, Angia, didn't have a known father. But as a family, they showered Amber and Angia with love. They still lived in Mommy and Daddy's mansion. She was the only one who moved out when she got married to Kalisto. Considering herself lucky to have ended up with the right man, she felt his unwavering love for her for 10 whole years from the day they met until now, and she also knew he'd be a great father because he adores children very much. Wed, November 27th. Although they hadn't been blessed with a child immediately, despite their numerous attempts, her friend and doctor, Cady, was right. Try and try until you succeed. So here she was, finally pregnant. She can now fulfill their dream of starting a family with Kalisto. Ma'am, we've arrived. The car stopped in front of the mansion she grew up in. She quickly got out and entered through the large gate. Good afternoon, Uncle Joe, she greeted Uncle Joe, the loyal guard she's known since she was a child. Lorraine. He looked at her in horror. What are you doing here? Ha! She laughed and was puzzled by his reaction. She playfully swatted him. Oh, come on, Uncle Joe. It's not as if I've never been in and out of this mansion to surprise you like that. She was about to pass him, filled with excitement to enter, but he blocked her way. Wait, hold on, dear. Just a moment, he pleaded, trying to restrain her. Why don't you stay outside for a while so I can inform Madam that you're here? Uncle Joe, what's the matter? Is something happening inside? Are Mommy and Daddy busy? She crossed her arms and raised an eyebrow. Because he tried to come up with an excuse, but nothing came out of his mouth. Lorraine, I think it's not a good day for you to visit. Why don't you just go back home? She let out an exasperated sigh. Uncle, it's a 2-hour drive and I'm feeling dizzy. Why does it seem like you don't want me to go inside? TSK. Jake, please, get Uncle Joe out of my way. Jake, who had been trailing behind her after parking the car outside, quickly pulled Uncle Joe out. Wait, Lorraine. Being an older man, he was no match for Jake's gentle tug, pulling him away. She continued walking. It was strange that the front door of the mansion, which was usually open from morning until afternoon, was still closed. She opened the door but froze when she heard the familiar voices of her family coming from the living room. Daddy, I am so happy you're finally home, she heard Angia's small voice from afar. Because of the wall blocking her view, she still couldn't see them. She was engulfed in confusion. Daddy? Angia has a daddy. But how? Amber didn't even know the man who got her pregnant. Wait, could it be? She found him. Is that why Uncle Joe stopped her from entering? But why? Because if so, it would be a huge piece of good news that she should know. I told you, my dear granddaughter, that your daddy would come home soon. Look, you have so many toys. She heard Mommy's voice happily speaking. Oh, thank you so much, Kalisto. You went through all this trouble for Angia. Angia is my daughter, so of course, I should give her everything. She stood there, like a statue in her place. Her steps halted, and her eyes widened. Even her breathing seemed to stop as time froze. Kalisto, Daddy, let's play. Angia, Daddy is still tired. He just arrived in the country. Let him rest for a while. Wed, November 27th. But Mommy. It's okay, Amber. It seems like our child missed me. Oh, Kalisto, just rest there. You probably haven't eaten yet. What do you want? I'll prepare a snack. Her eyes quickly grew hot. Her vision was blurred. Her palms nined icy cold. No, she felt like she had been doused in freezing water. She walked slowly, even though her legs were trembling, as if the things she heard weren't enough. She entered the mansion's living room. He was there, her husband, Kalisto, cradling Amber's 3-year-old daughter, Angia. While his attention was focused on Amber, who was currently fixing her messy hair. Meanwhile, her mom and dad were happily watching them from the sofa across the room. Oh, Aunt Lorraine is here. Angia shouted loudly as she was the first to notice her presence. She stood to the side, observing as the joy drained from their faces. They appeared as if they had seen a ghost when they glanced up at her. Their expressions turned pale, and she could sense the stiffness in their bodies, mirroring the unease she felt at that moment. What is the meaning? Her tears started to flow uncontrollably. What's the meaning of this? She almost lost her balance. She wanted to collapse on the floor. Lorraine, their eyes met slowly. Among everyone, Kalisto appeared to be the most taken aback by her presence. However, strangely, his emotions dissipated in an instant. He quickly reverted to his usual cold expression, as if her presence did not faze him. At Kalisto, her lips trembled, struggling to hold back a sob. She pointed at the innocent child. Why you're the father. Lorraine. Her mom stood up quickly to come closer to her. She took her cold, trembling hand in hers. Please don't make a scene right now. We'll explain everything to you later, okay? Don't make a scene. Me, she exclaimed, unable to hide her profound disbelief. Mom, you've known about this for a while. All of you. How long has this been going on? With all her strength, she pushed her away. Lorraine. Her dad quickly caught her. He looked at her with a stern face. What are you doing? Do you want to hurt your mother? I'm the one who's hurting now, Dad. She nearly strained her neck from shouting, her vision blurred by the tears pooling in her eyes. What does all of this mean? It feels like you're all just playing a trick on me. You're all plotting against Mel, Lorraine. Amber approached her unbothered. We were planning to tell you, but you found out before we could. Yes, Kalisto got me pregnant before, and he is Angia's father. Before the two of you got married, something happened between us, but it was just a one-time thing. I wanted to keep it quiet. Angia really wanted to meet her father. And Kalisto has the right to know that he has a child with me. Tears poured out of her from the pain she felt. Her chest tightened, making it almost impossible to breathe with everything she heard. She sobbed uncontrollably. How could you? A surge of emotions, she angrily kicked a large vase, causing it to fall and shatter. The sound of breaking glass reverberated through the room, blending with her mom, Amber and Angia's voices raised in shouts. Enough. Kalisto stood up and walked over to her, grabbing her arm and forcefully pulling her away. Nov, she cried even harder, hitting him and struggling. You're a cheater. A liar. How could you do this to me, Kalisto? I loved you. He confronted her firmly. Let's get a divorce. Lorraine, I don't love you anymore. I need to be there for Amber and Angia. What? Her whole body went limp. Tears kept flowing uncontrollably. It felt like a million volts had hit her, breaking her heart. She almost passed out as she gazed into his eyes. How dare you? How could you do this to me? He looked at her with red eyes before turning away and letting go of her arm. With no strength left in her body, she collapsed to the floor. That's how powerless she felt at that moment. We haven't built a family together in the 3 years we've been married. That's why I'm choosing Amber and Angia. Let's go our separate ways. Lorraine. Oh, send gift. A week shipped by, her only sustenance being a sip of water to keep her going. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and couldn't even muster the strength to leave her bed. It was as if she were paralyzed. All she did was cry. Lorraine, you've got to eat something. You can't keep this up. Come on, try to eat a little. She heard her grandma Nanny's pleading voice, but she couldn't bring herself to care. Tears flowed endlessly whenever she remembered her husband's and family's betrayal. She buried her face in the pillow and sobbed loudly. Nanny, Kalisto cheated on me with my sister Amber. The niece I've been taking care of is actually my husband's child. What's even more painful is that mommy and daddy are keeping it from me to protect their favorite child. It hurts so much, Nanny. If only I could rip my heart out, I would have done it. Lorraine, her nanny, hugged her. She gently lified her face so she wouldn't suffocate on the pillow, wiping the tears from her face several times. Go ahead, let out all the pain you're feeling until you get tired and numb. Just cry out all the pain. It hurts. They hurt me, Nanny. They conspired against me. It felt like her heart was being crushed with intense pain. How could they do this to me? What did I do wrong? You're not to blame. That's why you shouldn't be the one suffering like this, her nanny comforted, gently rubbing her back. But this isn't the end. You're still young, and your life doesn't end with Kalisto. You'll meet many who will truly love you and never hurt you like this. She shook her head as she sat up on the bed. With emotion and desperation, Nanny, there's something I haven't shared with you. I'm pregnant with Kalisto's child. Tears streamed down her face. I've been pregnant for a month and only my doctor friend knows. Nanny, what should I do? I don't know if I can handle losing Kalisto because of this baby I'm carrying. But he already has another child and he chose that child in Amber. What do I do now, Nanny? My life feels like it's falling apart. Oh my goodness, she exclaimed. First of all, you shouldn't talk like that. It's not over. We'll figure this out. I think about it. I'll help you with whatever you need. Right now, you need to take care of yourself. Eat, shower, get out of bed. Everything will work out, I promise. Lorraine. Her nanny took care of her for almost a month in her own home, far away from her parents, Amber, Angia, and Kalisto, as well as the others involved in their deception and betrayal. She was the only person she had to turn to, always there for her, as if they were truly blood-related because of how close they were. Can you, Amanda, give Lorraine some time to relax and think things through? Do you think she's ready to talk to you right now? Lorraine is my daughter, so let me handle this. Ask Lorraine to come out so I can talk to her and help her understand what's going on. She peeked outside the door from the bedroom to see her mother and nanny arguing in the living room. It was past 10 o'clock at night, yet her mother still barged into the nanny's house and entered as if she owned the place. If not for Hugo, the nanny's grandson, Mommy wouldn't stop searching through the house. What's not clear here? Your daughter Amber, a homewrecker, ended up pregnant by Lorraine's husband. You, as a parent, kept quiet about it, tolerated them, and pretended to be a family, hurting Lorraine in the process. The truth is as clear as day. Nanny said. Hey, old woman. Mommy pointed her fingers at her. Don't you dare call Amber a homewrecker. It was just an incident that happened between her and Kalisto. Nonsense. Nanny retorted. Don't point fingers at me, Amanda. Since Amber was young, I noticed her flirtatious ways, always seeking attention from men. Do you remember Lorraine's first boyfriend? Didn't she seduce him? Did you hear anything from Lorraine? Nothing. She left it to her sister and came crying to me. So I wasn't surprised when I found out that even her husband was seduced by your daughter. Wed, November 27th BR2. Watch your mouth. Meenal Mom was about to slap Nanny when Hugo stepped in and stood between them. Mind your manners, madam. Don't disrespect my grandma in her own home, Hugo warned Mom. Ugh. Mom blushed with anger, still glaring at Nanny. It's not Amber's fault that she's prettier than her sister. It's not her fault that men are drawn to her. Kalisto pursued Amber and Angia himself. We didn't push him. That was his choice. If Lorraine doesn't accept that reality, things will only get worse and the innocent child will be more confused. If Lorraine doesn't face it, nothing will change because her husband hasn't loved her for a while. In fact, he's been planning to divorce her, but he couldn't because Lorraine was too oblivious. Is that how a mother should act? Amanda, Nanny asked, disappointed. You're hurting your eldest daughter even more. You're showing favoritism even though you know it's wrong. I've seen your unfair treatment towards them from the start. Don't you realize that Lorraine loves Kalisto deeply because he's the one who truly brings her joy? He gives her the attention your family fails to provide, and most importantly, he taught her what real love is. Do you understand that for almost 10 years they've been through everything together, from strangers to a couple, and then marriage? Do you think it's easy for Lorraine to give up everything for Amber? Tears trickled down her cheeks. She never expected Nanny to be aware of everything all this time, while her own mother remained clueless. Reflecting on it, Kalisto and she had been together for a long time. Maybe that's why the ache in her chest feels so overwhelming now. These tears just wouldn't cease. They flowed like rain, uncontrollably. The pain was excruciating. Her eyes were so swollen that she could barely open them properly. She felt worse than someone who had been physically harmed. She returned to the room, seeking solace in a quiet corner by the wall where she could weep in solitude. After a prolonged silence, she heard her mom's voice from outside. Kalisto has already prepared the divorce papers for Lorraine. He'll talk to her when she's ready, as he's set on ending the marriage. Kalisto cares for Amber and Angia, so she hoped she could find the strength to let go. It's best to move forward sooner rather than later. She shouldn't drag it out, especially now that Kalisto and Amber are preparing for a wedding. She covered her mouth, stifling a scream. Her chest constricted, and she trembled as she struggled to remove the ring from her finger. "Why?" she gasped for breath as she tried to take of the ring. "Why are you hurting me like this, Kalisto?" 3. Lorraine, it's good that you finally agreed to meet with Kalisto and me. Lorraine sat at the table, facing Amber's innocent smile. She pulled up a chair, her expression devoid of emotion, as she locked eyes with her soon-to-be ex-husband, Kalisto, seated next to Amber. Their intertwined arms seemed like a cruel twist of fate, but Lorraine remained composed, hiding the pain and bitterness that gnawed at her. "Why did you bring a whore when I asked to speak with you alone?" Lorraine's voice was cold, cutting through the strained atmosphere. Before Kalisto could respond, Amber interjected, attempting to clarify the situation. "I don't want any misunderstandings. We're facing a big problem, so I also came along to talk to you, Lorraine." Lorraine stayed quiet for a moment, her eyes locked on Kalisto. "Why did you bring my sister into this? She's always hopping from one guy to the next. Do you really enjoy her company that much? Or is it something else?" Amber, he gritted his teeth, addressing Lorraine with a menacing tone. His eyes narrowed. "Don't disrespect me." "Who's disrespecting who? If there's disrespect here, it's all on you. You both act like dogs, moving on like nothing happened after that one fling." "Wait, was it just once? Or more?" Lorraine smirked slyly. "No wonder Angia came along. What a blessing. Right? Lorraine, it was a mistake," he said solemnly. "We were all drunk at your parents' place. I stumbled into the wrong room with Amber. We woke up to the mess and decided to act like it never happened. But Amber got pregnant. One had a hunch that I could be the father from the start, but she never confirmed it. I chose to marry you out of love. But now, Lorraine," his gaze turned icy towards her, "I don't love you anymore." Under the table, Lorraine's nails dug into her palm, concealing her true emotions behind a blank facade. Why? What did she do that made him fall out of love? No, what did Amber do that made him choose them? Lorraine dismissed her own thoughts. Why does it matter anymore? Why did it even matter now? I can't shake the guilt for neglecting my responsibility to Angia. She's innocent and needs her father. She needs me, he continued. And your child with me needs you too. Lorraine hesitated to speak. The words lingered on her tongue, but she held back. Perhaps his admission of no longer loving her made things crystal clear. Why bring up her pregnancy now? Would it make him rethink his choice between Amber and Angia? Could it undo the deception and pain they caused her? That's why I'm asking for a divorce, Lorraine. His words carried a heavy weight. Amber retrieved the paper from the envelope on the table, offering it to Lorraine with a pen. Just sign it, Lorraine. It's a mutual divorce agreement to settle our issues peacefully. It's for all our peace of mind. Lorraine's eyes burned with restrained emotions as she stared sharply at the paper. With a forced smile, she said, I've got my own pen. She took out her own pen from her bag. She didn't show them the trembling of her hand as she signed. Afterward, she lifted her gaze coldly. Amber's eyes sparkled with delight as she quickly took the paper, unable to hide her joy as she looked at Lorraine's signature. November 27th. Kalisto remained emotionless, silently staring at Lorraine, as if analyzing her true feelings. As if he couldn't believe how quickly she signed the divorce paper he wanted her to sign. Lorraine's eyes grew colder. Don't ever expect me to beg you to choose me, to love me again. I gave you everything. I didn't lack in my love for you. I changed so much for you because I loved you, Kalisto. But you repaid me with such cruelty. She placed the ring in front of him on the table, full of meaning. Throw the ring away yourself, just like you threw away our relationship. You chose my sister and her child over me. Thank you for almost 10 years together. Don't ever regret your choice, Kalisto, because I will never love you again after this. She saw him swallow hard before nodding. I promise I won't regret my choice. Thank you for everything, Lorraine. Lorraine, thank you too. Amber tried to offer sympathy, but her joy still prevailed in the divorce. The bitterness in Lorraine's mouth deepened. Take care of Kalisto. He's allergic to peanuts. Her smile faded slightly. Okay, Lorraine. As Lorraine rose to her feet, she turned away, on the verge of tears. Her knees trembled as she exited the coffee shop. In her car, tears streamed down her face, the pain overwhelming. She gently placed a hand on her 2-month-old belly. Mommy will do her best to raise you. She sobbed loudly. I'll protect you, so no one could hurt you they did to me. The same way with each tear she shed, a sense of relief washed over her. The weight of her decision lifted as she confronted the truth and embraced the path ahead for, oh wow. This wedding gown is perfect for you, ma'am. You might just be the most beautiful bride in the history of brides. I know this suits me, but no need to exaggerate it. Just say I'm gorgeous and that's enough, the stylist commented. Ma'am bride, it should be Mr. Groom telling you that, but he seems to be absent-minded. Ha! Kalisto. Kalisto's mind was elsewhere when he last saw Lorraine's face. Her body slumped, her eyes widened, and her cheeks sank. Despite signing the divorce papers easily, she appeared unaffected. How could this be? Several weeks had gone by, but Lorraine's presence continued to weigh on his mind. He thought that ending their relationship in that manner should have been enough, yet he felt unsettled. Why did he feel that something was off? Was it because of their lack of communication? Or maybe his failure to explain everything clearly to her? But what more could he clarify now that she had already accepted the divorce? Kalisto, what's mind? You Amber's interruption brought him back to reality. You've been in La La Land, what's on your? He straightened in his seat on the couch, took a deep breath, and plastered on a smile in response. Just business. I'm sorry, still business. What's that about? You agreed to accompany me for my wedding gown fitting, but your mind is still stuck in your business. It's like you're a million miles away. She crossed her arms, giving him a pout. Sorry, was all he could muster. Ugh, she quickly relented and flashed a sweet smile. Anyway, do you like my gown? It's the bee's knees, right? What do you think? Beautiful and it's a perfect fit for you. She pouted again. Your compliments are too reserved for your future bride. Because of that, I don't like this anymore. I'll try on another one. Okay, she entered the fitting room again with the dressmakers. He sighed and pulled out his cell phone. Scrolling through his contacts, he paused at Lorraine's number. Reading her last message to him on the day she discovered the truth, he couldn't help but feel puzzled. Take care on your way home tomorrow, love. I need to see you in person because I have something important to tell you. I'm sure you'll be delighted, love. I'll give you a clue. I'm craving foods I don't usually eat. Hi, love you. Oh, despite his attempts to decipher it, he remained perplexed. His curiosity about Lorraine's unusual cravings persisted even after nearly 2 months. Lorraine eats everything, so what are these cravings? He couldn't understand the clue she gave him. Did she want him to bring back food? It seemed important to her. After all, she's always been this weird. Tada, Kalisto, what do you think if I wear this kind of wedding gown for our wedding? Amber emerged from the fitting room, showcasing herself in the chosen white gown. He forced a smile. It's beautiful wed, November 27th, for she pouted. Every dress I try on, you just say it's beautiful. Isn't there anything else? I'm not satisfied. I want you to be amazed at how I look. You're already gorgeous, no need to be overly dressed. But this is my first time getting married. HMP. You're already on your second, so you don't care. She feigned offense. Whatever. I'll try on another one. Sissy, please help me take off this gown. I have one more that needs to be fitted on it, madam. For sure you'll like the next one. Actually, all the 12 wedding gowns you had made are beautiful. So Mr. has nothing else to say but that. Ha, he glanced at his watch. He had been watching Amber try on gowns for 2 hours and she still wasn't finished. Feeling impatient to leave the building while Amber was still being attended to inside, he called his secretary. How's the meeting with Mrs. Lombardi? Did she accept our company's proposal? He inquired eagerly as his secretary answered the call. Mr. Avellino, she's having second thoughts about accepting or not. She finds it insulting that she didn't have the meeting with the company's CEO, even though she understands that he had an emergency and couldn't attend the meeting. His secretary explained, sounding concerned. I'm sorry, Mr. Avellino, I tried my best to talk to Mrs. Lombardi. She said she'll think about it and will call to give her decision, but it's highly unlikely that she will accept the proposal due to being insulted by your absence, damn it, he muttered, rubbing his temples. Set a schedule forms to meet, and I'll personally visit her for the business proposal. Yes, sir. He ended the call, pondering why he had promised to accompany Amber for her dress fitting during their earlier meeting. It was hard to turn her down, and he was sure they would argue if he didn't show up. However, it was his company that would miss a significant opportunity if he didn't handle the situation properly. Oh wow, Kalisto. He lowered his hand as a woman stood in front of him. He stared at her for a moment before realizing who she was. Cady. Unexpectedly seeing you here. Cady was one of Lorraine's friends. She probably knew about their divorce, yet she greeted him with a smile on her face. What are you doing here, Kalisto? Her face brightened. Is Lorraine with you? He frowned. Didn't she know? TM not with her. How about you? What are you doing here? I'm getting married and shopping for a wedding gown. Don't tell Lorraine yet, I want to surprise her. I won't disturb her for now because she's surely busy with your baby. She smiled wider. By the way, how's she doing? Is she taking her pregnancy vitamins? You're always there for her when she's not feeling well. Being a good husband takes patience, Kalisto. TM. He was left stunned by what he just heard. His heart suddenly raced. What are you saying? Pregnant Lorraine? Ha! She paused, puzzled. You didn't know? Ha! Hasn't she told you yet? Oh my gosh, did I spoil it? But no. It's been equals months, right? She's 3 months pregnant now. It's impossible she hasn't told you yet. She's still excited. He frantically pulled out his cell phone to look at Lorraine's last message again. She said she's craving foods she's not usually rating. Is that because of her pregnancy? Cady blinked several times, observing the current situation. Answer me. He shouted impatiently. Wed, NOV 4th. Why yes, yes. Of course. Lorraine is pregnant. Why don't you know? Damn it. He hurriedly left the place. He got into his car and sped off. Damn it, Lorraine. 5. Kalisto angrily threw his cell phone in the car after failing to contact Lorraine. His foot slammed down on the accelerator, the road ahead blurring into a tunnel as he raced along the highway. His long fingers gripped the steering wheel tightly, teeth grinding as he pictured Lorraine in his mind. She had signed the divorce papers without telling him about their child. He deserved to know. He had every right to know. And what exactly did Lorraine plan to do with their unborn child? Keep it away, hide it, and not introduce it to him. For how long? Unable to accept the thought, Kalisto arrived at Lorraine's nanny's house, slammed the car door, and walked briskly through the front yard, pounding on the door repeatedly. Lorraine! Lorraine, I know you're in there. Come out, we need to talk, he shouted. Lorraine had nowhere else to go but to her nanny who raised her, so even though she wasn't responding to his texts and calls, he knew where to find her. Kalisto. The door swung open, revealing Mona with a mix of shock and annoyance on her face. What are you doing here? Where's Lorraine? He asked, losing his usual composure. Are you serious? Mona's face crumpled. What for, really? She napped, glaring at him angrily. If I once held you in high regard, now you're just a big nuisance to me, young man. After what you've done to Lorraine, do you think I'd allow you to speak with her? Your divorce has been settled, hasn't it? So what more do you need from her? Isn't the hurt you caused her enough? Do you have something more to pursue? Why not just say it to my face so I can retaliate for her? Mona, he took a deep, heavy breath and stated what he had learned seriously. I know Lorraine is pregnant right now, so we need to settle things between us. He saw her sudden shock. How do you? Her eyebrows furrowed. What does it matter to you? Pregnant or not, you two are done, so stay out of it. Wayne, call the police to arrest this man for causing a disturbance here, so you plan to hide that she's pregnant. He seethed with anger. Tell me, am I the father of her child or not? Really? She grew furious. What do you think of Lorraine? That she sleeps around so that you wouldn't be the father. She realized what she said and looked away. You're not the father. Whether you are or not, it's none of your business since you two are separated, so can you not? Never show your face to me again. His face crumpled. Fine. You won't see me again. Just once, Mona. Just once. Let me talk to Lorraine, he pleaded irritably. I promise this is the last time. We got divorced, but we never had a proper conversation. We never clarified things. I just want to know more about her pregnancy, Mona. I still have the right to know because I might be the father. Tisk, she snapped irritably. Lorraine isn't here. She's at the hospital for a checkup. I'll tell you where, but Kalisto, Lorraine has made her decision. She will never come back to you, no matter what happens. Pregnant or not, whether you are the father or not, she's tired of you and your family. She got serious for a moment. I'll allow you two to talk one last time. But after this, you'll never see her again. He clenched his jaw and nodded. As she told him the location, he rushed to his car and drove away. Who was Minato decide? If only he had known Lorraine was pregnant, then maybe. Fuck. He sped off in his car, nearly flying it through the air. However, just as he was about to reach the hospital, he didn't notice the stoplight turning red. Before he could react, another accelerating car collided with his. The loud screech of tires filled his ears, and he felt the jolt of impact reverberate through NOV 5th his body. Metal twisted and glass shattered, sending shards flying. His vision blurred as his car spun lights. His car rolled over and of control, the world outside his windows merging into a chaotic swirl of colors and overturned vehicle. on the road, and when it finally came to a stop, he found himself lying inside. His eyes were open, but all he could see was the beautiful face of Lorraine, smiling innocently at him. He wanted to see her for a few more moments, but darkness slowly swallowed him whole. "Hello, Lorraine. Are you still there?" Cady's voice grabbed Lorraine's attention from the other end of the phone call. "I'm still here. I just left the hospital," Lorraine replied, her hand gently stroking her slightly bulging belly, hidden under a large jacket. "I'm sorry, I didn't know that you and Kalisto had divorced. I didn't mean to tell him about your pregnancy earlier. I'm really sorry." Cady's voice was full of regret. Lorraine swallowed hard and closed her eyes tightly before letting out a quiet sigh. "It's not your fault, Cady. With everything that's happened these past months, I forgot to tell you that we are no longer together, and I kept the baby a secret from him. That explains his reaction earlier, Lorraine. What will you do now? It looks like he might come looking for you because he left in a hurry," Cady remarked. "Don't worry about it. I'll handle this myself," Lorraine assured her, her tone resolute. She then walked around the parking lot to get to her car, where Elector was waiting. It had been daylight when she entered the hospital, but now that she had left, night had fallen. Her stomach was churning, and the baby was demanding food. "Are you sure you'll be okay, Lorraine?" Cady asked, her concern lacing her words. "Yes, I will be. After all, Kalisto shouldn't have a say in this now that we're divorced. He has no business with. It's not like I would listen to him anyway. I'm about to leave the country, and I'll make sure he never sees our child, Lorraine. My decisions," stated, her voice tinged with a mix of determination and sadness, ready to face whatever lay ahead on her own. She bid Cady farewell as she reached her car, which Hector immediately drove out of the hospital. As she quietly gazed out the window of the car, her eyes caught the noisy sounds of ambulances and the loud crowds gathered at the roadside. 2 vehicles were overturned and badly damaged. The scene was chaotic, with flashing lights and emergency responders working frantically. "Ooh, a car accident," Hector whispered. "Poor them. That looks pretty serious. You really have to be extra careful when driving. Goes to show you've got to stay sharp on the road. You never know when disaster will strike." Lorraine briefly stared at the scene before she averted her gaze. The sight of the wreckage sent a shiver down her spine, but she quickly pushed the thought away, focusing on the path ahead. 6. Is it hard for mommy to remember she has a home? Why does she keep forgetting she has twins to take care of? Lorraine's heart softened as she listened to her son Lucio's voice message. His voice was so gentle and sweet. She pressed play on the next message. "You heard Lucio, Mom. It's been days since he started missing you so much that he can barely eat his meals. When are you coming back home? Lucio misses you." Lucian's sharp and annoyed voice followed, filled with frustration. "Mommy, Lucian's the one who misses you more. Hey, turn it off now." Or a smile spread across Lorraine's lips as she listened to the last message, and she let out a deep sigh. She knew that Lucian often used Lucio to play the sympathy card. Lucio had always been the sickly one since birth, almost constantly in and out of the hospital, which made Lorraine develop a special soft spot for him. Lucian, on the other hand, was active, brave, and rough, often the troublesome twin. He knew exactly how to exploit her soft spot for Lucio to get what they both wanted. It was their way of manipulating her, and even though she knew it, she always fell for it. What could she do? She couldn't resist her 2 sons. With their incredible cuteness and high tens, they always gave in. It had only been a week since Lorraine traveled to a distant city for the opening of a new branch of Loriglow Cosmetics, her company that had been steadily growing over the past 3 years. But she guessed that 1 week was too much for her 5-year-old twins, especially Lucian. Although he was the strong one, Lorraine had unintentionally neglected him, having to focus on Lucio's deteriorating health. She began to understand why Lucian always used Lucio as an excuse to get more of her attention. Of course, she felt bad. It was her first time being a mother, and with twins no less, and no father present to help, it was too much for her. She also had to work tirelessly to provide for their needs. Mona had been a huge help in watching over the twins ever since they were little, allowing Lorraine to continue her work as a therapist. 3 years ago, Lorraine had the opportunity to revive her own cosmetics business, which she first started when she was only 18. Despite its past failures, with the help of Wayne, one of Mona's grandsons and a successful businessman, it has now become successful. Now, as the business grows more popular, Lorraine finds herself busier than ever, leaving her with only a small amount of time to spend with her twins. She replied with a voice message, "Mommy misses you too. I'm on my way home now, babies. I'll bring home Hawaiian pizza for Lucian and deliciously healthy veggies for Lucio." "That's not fair, Mommy. Doc Cady said I'm healthier than ever, so why can't I have pizza too?" Lucio replied within seconds, his voice not as sweet as before. It almost sounded like Lucian. She couldn't help but laugh at how quickly he broke character. "Oh honey, I'd love to give you pizza, but we both know it will upset your stomach, and you'll end up in the bathroom for an hour. Mommy would hate to make you sick, so no. I promise the veggies I'm bringing this time are delicious and have an enjoyable taste." She received another message with Lucio making whining sounds as if throwing a tantrum and Lucian laughing mischievously in the background. "Mom, come home safe. There have been a lot of car accidents these past few days with winter coming. Tell Uncle Hector to drive extra carefully." Lucian sent in a voice message. I brought warmth to Lorraine's heart and she felt like tearing up. She missed them so much. And yes, 1 week was also too much for her to be away from her twins. "Got it. I love you, Lucio. Don't worry, the next time you wake up, Mommy will be there. Take care of each other. Okay, listen to Mona and don't give her a hard time cleaning up your mess. Love you." 6 years had passed quickly since she left New York to live in Los Angeles. But now she's back in her hometown for business. She couldn't help but feel nostalgic, a slight sadness tugging at her heart. After the divorce years ago, she never thought of contacting her family or in-laws again. She had blocked them out of her life, and who knows what happened to them now. Maybe they're still sailing their ships, especially since the Avellino family's business is quite popular these days. Lorraine never read magazines, newspapers, or articles, nor did she watch any news if she heard the family name mentioned. She was about to exit the hotel building while contacting Hector to ready the car when a familiar voice and face stopped her in her tracks. "Lorman." Her FGT eyes widened in shock. Lorraine's heart began to race. Her entire body went cold and her knees felt weak. Took a step back, gasped for air, then turned around and headed back to the elevator. "Wait, please." She hurriedly pushed through the crowd and managed to close the elevator doors just in time. When she returned to the city, she wondered what the odds were of running into someone from her past. Well, she had just come face to face with her biological father carrying a little girl. Was it Angic? Shit, she bit her lower lip while her hands rested on her pounding heart. Of course, she felt nervous and shocked. They had a good father-daughter relationship before, but he was one of the people who betrayed her. He looked quite old now, with fully grown gray hair and a wrinkled face, not how she remembered him. "Send gift. 7, Mommy." Lucio's loud voice greeted Lorraine as soon as she opened the door to their home. "We out," and he fell onto "Don't run, you'll trip." Mona's warning came too late. Before Lucio could reach Lorraine, his legs gave out the tiled floor. "Oh no, Lucio." Lorraine's happy expression immediately turned to concern. She quickly set down the gifts she had brought for the kids on the nearby sofa and rushed to pick up her son. "Ouch," Lucio muttered softly, feeling the pain in his knees. Holding him close, Lorraine gently caressed his cheek, full of worry. "How many times do I have to tell you not to run? You know how fragile your bones are, right?" "Mommy, it's because I missed you," he said, using his big ocean blue eyes and pouting lips to charm her. "Mommy was gone so long. I got excited, now my knees hurt and you're scolding me." "Lucio, I'm not mad. I'm just reminding you to be careful because you're clumsy and your body is fragile. If you get hurt, Mommy hurt Sakai." He pouted even more. Lucio's illness hadn't been fully diagnosed yet. He had been misdiagnosed twice already due to the complexity of his symptoms, while Lucian's health remained perfectly normal. This gave Lorraine hope that Lucio's condition wasn't serious. "Where's Lucian?" Lorraine asked Lucio. "In our room. He stayed up all night thinking you'd come home late. Now he's sleeping like a log." "Ah." Lorraine gently set Lucio down on the sofa next to Mona. "You told me you'd be home last night, so I told your eager boys," Mona explained. "Why did you just get back now?" Lorraine sighed, feeling a weight on her chest as she remembered yesterday's encounter at the hotel. She opened one of the gift boxes and handed Lucio a box of healthy snacks. "Let's talk about it later, Mona," she said. "Oh," Mona responded, sensing Lorraine's seriousness. "Did something happen?" "Kinda. What happened, Mommy?" Lucio asked curiously. "Did someone bully you?" She laughed at his question, lightening her mood. "No, baby, just eat your veggies. I went through a lot to get them for you." He pouted but reluctantly started opening the box. "It's unfair. Lucian gets to cat pizza. We're twins, so why can't I be as healthy as him, Mommy?" She didn't know the answer. She kissed his forehead and cheek and smiled gently. "You won't be unhealthy forever. We'll do our best to build your strength so you can eat whatever you want, okay, honey? For now, let's follow Doc Cady's advice to help you get better quickly, okay?" He sighed and nodded. "Okay, Mommy." Lucio is a big boy and always listens to adults. That's why he'll get what he deserves in no time, she praised, brightening his face as he eagerly started eating the veggies. 7 Lorraine excused herself and went upstairs to check on Lucian. She found been sleeping in his pajamas. Hearing Lucio earlier, she softly approached and sat on the edge of his bed. He's so cute with his mouth wide open and drooling. She regretted staying at the hotel all night, fearing her father might find her, which kept her from coming home to her kids, and made Lucian stay up late waiting for her. His little ways of being a sweetheart truly warmed her heart. Knowing that Lucian showed no signs of illness like Lucio was a relief beyond compare. She couldn't handle the worry if both of her twins had serious health issues. Lucian's health was the hope. Lorraine clung to Lucian. Honey, she gently stroked his soft, chubby cheek. She knew Lucio might be jealous that she brought pizza for Lucian, but she wanted to avoid making Lucian feel neglected because of Lucio's needs. Mona had once mentioned that Lucian felt left out, thinking she only cared about Lucio. Balancing attention between the two was tough for Lorraine. She tried her best to be a good mother and fair to both, so neither would feel favored. Her love for both of them was equal and unmatched. They were the reason she survived the severe depression that once drove her to consider ending her life. If it weren't for the twins, she would have met her downfall years ago. They were her salvation. Mommy. Lucian woke up and quickly sat up. Mommy. He hugged her neck tightly. Lorraine's smile grew wide and sweet as she cradled him, laughing softly. Oh sweetie, do you miss me that much? Why did you come back so late, Mom? I thought something happened to you on the road, like a car accident. I was worried all night. Sweetie, why would you think that? Because I've been having nightmares about car accidents lately, Mom. It's very, very tragic. He looked genuinely worried as he faced her. Lucian, Uncle Hector is a very good driver, and we've never had a car accident. She sighed, shaking her head. What did I tell you about watching Final Destination? I stopped watching it since you forbade me months ago, I swear. Then, I guess it left a trauma in you. She picked him up. Mommy will take a break from work for a week, so I'll help take away the nightmares, alright. Really? His face lit up as she carried him downstairs. Really? How about starting with some pizza? How unfair. Lucio shouted from afar, still upset as he ate the veggies she gave him earlier. Baby, we just talked about this, whatever. Yay, pizza. Lucian happily jumped down from her arms to grab the treat. Phew, raising identical twins with different personalities alone is really tough. I wonder how easy life must have been for the other supposed parents of the twins. 8-10 months had passed since Kalisto woke up from his 5-year coma, yet he was still in recovery. Instead of joy and celebration, their family was engulfed in chaos and worry. No one could believe what was happening, and everything seemed out of control. Kalisto, please. Hold on, just hear me out. Amber sobbed, trying to stop Kalisto as he rampaged through their mansion. Kalisto, I'm begging you. Just listen. Move. Kalisto yelled, shoving Amber against the wall. Amber. Oh no. Ma'am, Amber. Amber. Her mother, Amanda, ran frantically toward her from the second floor. But before she could help, Amber quickly got up to chase after Kalisto again. Kalisto. Please, stop. Listen to me. I'm begging you, Kalisto. Amber almost stumbled as she tried to catch up with him, despite being thrown and hit by various objects along the way. Mommy. Daddy. Angia's cries echoed as she fearfully climbed to the second floor. Amanda immediately moved to block her. Nanny. Take Angia now. Stay in the living room, hurry. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, madam. The nanny quickly moved to retrieve Angia, who cried even harder. But Nana. What's happening? Why are mommy and daddy fighting? Angia resisted. Amanda shook her head. We'll explain after this, okay? Just stay in the living room for now, please. With no other choice, Angia went downstairs with her nanny. Amanda hurried after Amber and Kalisto. Broken vases, disarrayed wall portraits, and open room doors greeted her as she passed through the hallway. Lorraine. Where are you? Lorraine. Kalisto's shouts chiped. Kalisto, stop it. She isn't here. Amber pleaded. Where is my wife? I'm your wife. Amber cried out. And no, we're about to get married. We're supposed to get married because you and Lorraine are already AHI. Amber's voice was cut off by a loud AP. Amanda's eyes widened when she turned the corner just in time to see Kalisto slap her daughter hard. What do you think you're doing? She interposed herself between them to protect Amber. Her knees almost gave way seeing the intense anger on Kalisto's face. Don't you dare hurt Ber. We need to talk this out. His eyes were bloodshot, his teeth grinding in anger. He looked ready to hurt anyone who got in his way. Do you think I'd trust you after what you did to me last time? He yelled, smashing whatever he could lay his hands on. See Kalisto. Amber sobbed harder behind her mother. Her whole body was shaking. The last time Kalisto referred to was when he first went berserk in their mansion, destroying everything because he couldn't find Lorraine. They had no choice but to send nurses to sedate him and rush him back to the hospital because Hude, NOV8 wasn't in a stable condition yet. Kalisto had been detained in the hospital until his condition was fully assessed and the effects of his 5-year coma were understood. But now, he had escaped again before anyone realized it. Luckily, he came to their mansion and not somewhere else. When Kalisto woke up, he immediately looked for Lorraine, confused about why they were there, especially why Amber was taking care of him. Everyone was puzzled by his statements, as if he couldn't remember the last moments before the incident. When Amber told him the truth because she didn't like how Kalisto was looking for Lorraine, everything started to fall apart. See Kalisto, we need to go back to the hospital so we can find out why you're acting like this. Elle, look at yourself, you can barely stand. The doctor said you're still very weak. But why Amanda couldn't think straight due to the sudden turn of events. I don't care about that. Lorraine was right next to me when I fell asleep. Why is she gone? Why is she gone when I woke up? Where is she? That's all I want to know. Please. His voice, though angry and irritated, was full of desperation, emotions they had never seen in him before. See Kalisto, I'm the one you love, Amber whispered between sobs. Damn it, Amber. I know you've had feelings for me for a long time, but I'm married to your sister, for goddamn sake. Can you just stop this? Kalisto's frustration was palpable. Mommy. Amber collapsed to the floor, her cold hands gripping her mother's leg. Bring Kalisto back to me, I'm begging you. Amanda was stunned, blinking several times. As a mother, she felt Amber's anguish. Even if she didn't want to accept it, even if her mind refused to process it, it seemed like her throat felt dry as she spoke calmly. Kalisto, listen to me. He gritted his teeth. Are you finally going to tell me where my wife is? She took a deep breath. You and my daughter Lorraine have been divorced for a long time. Don't you remember? Bullshit. He turned away, ready to leave. She didn't falter. You got divorced because you and Amber had a child together, don't you remember that? Don't you remember, Angia? His eyes widened as he looked back, shocked by what he heard. What? What did you say? She continued, you didn't accept it for a long time because you loved Lorraine, but eventually, you took responsibility and fell for Amber after you got tired of Lorraine having an affair. You decided to do the right thing, divorce Lorraine, marry Amber, and be a father to Angia. Bullshit, he muttered, holding his forehead as he lost balance from dizziness. This is all bullshit. No, he supported himself by holding onto the wall to avoid collapsing from the corner of her eye. Amanda signaled the nurses who were hiding in the hallway. Seeing Kalisto weaken, they quickly moved in. Before Kalisto could recover, he was sedated again, bringing relief to all of them. Amanda sighed in relief as she hugged her sobbing daughter. November 27th, 8G. Mom, he can't remember any of it, Amber gasped, struggling for air. I can't believe this, Mommy. Don't worry, sweetheart. No matter what, we'll make it right again, Amanda soothed, her eyes resolute. Send gift. 9. The patient, Mr. Kalisto Avellino, is experiencing retrograde amnesia, the doctor announced. Amnesia. Amber's suspicion had turned into a dreaded reality. Hearing the doctor's confirmation made her knees buckle. She collapsed beside Kalisto's bed, her heart heavy. Doc Wilson, what does that mean? Caroline, Kalisto's mother, asked, her voice trembling. Please, what's happening to my son? The doctor, who had been caring for Kalisto for years, sighed deeply. Retrograde amnesia is when someone has trouble remembering things from before a certain event or injury. The extent of this memory loss can vary. Because of the car accident nearly 6 years ago and Mr. Avellino's prolonged coma, even though his physical recovery is nearly complete, his cognitive functions are still significantly affected. He may have retrograde amnesia, causing him to forget events from the past few years. It's crucial for us to identify what periods and events he remembers to help him understand what has happened since the accident. Oh my God. My son. Caroline broke down in tears, gazing sorrowfully at her sleeping son. Amber's face turned ashen as she tried to process the news. Why does he have to forget that we were together and about to get married? Why? I know this situation is really frustrating and concerning, but we all need to help improve his condition. Doctor, please. Caroline interrupted, stepping closer. Kalisto's memory loss is temporary, right? He'll get his memories back soon, won't he? I'm sorry, but retrograde amnesia can be temporary, long-lasting, or even permanent. It depends on his recovery and the treatments we use. No. Amber shook her head repeatedly. I don't want this. Mom, I don't want this. She stomped her feet in frustration, her mind struggling to grasp what she was hearing. Amber, Amanda, her mother, quickly wrapped her in a consoling hug. But Amber needed assurance that Kalisto would recover, that his memories would return, that he still chose her. This is all Lorraine's fault. It's her fault Kalisto ended up like this. Amber mindlessly pounded on her mom in her fury. She took away the man I love. We should have been together by now, but not because of what she did. Because of what she did, this happened. If you'll excuse me, the doctor said as he made a hasty exit. Amber believed that if Lorraine hadn't taken Kalisto from her from the start, none of this would have happened. Amber had been in love with Kalisto ever since Caroline, Kalisto's mother, introduced them. Caroline and Amber's best friends since high school, and Caroline always supported the idea of Amber and Kalisto together. Mom had been, but Kalisto had poor judgment when it came to women. Instead of noticing Amber, he was drawn to her sister, Lorraine. Despite Lorraine being 2 years older, that didn't matter to him. It was infuriating beyond words. Amber couldn't contain her seething anger. Amber was undeniably more attractive than Lorraine. She was sexier and more appealing to others. Lorraine's only edge was her intelligence and talent, but her personality was lacking, making Amber the center of attention. Lorraine dressed and acted like a rolled maid, and Lorraine, experiencing a guy persistently chasing her for the first time, quickly gave in, despite Amber repeatedly telling her that Kalisto was hers. Well, Caroline said emotionally, her gaze piercing Amber. I guess this is your karma, darling. Oh wed, NOV 9th Caroline. Amanda's voice cut in sharply. You heard me, I said what I said. We all know that Amber stole my son from Lorraine. This wouldn't have happened if she hadn't lured him into sin and had an affair. Kalisto was content with Lorraine before, and there was no evidence that Lorraine was involved with another man when Kalisto was away. You know what? I believe you both fabricated this. Caroline's tone was sharp. My son almost died. He couldn't be with me for years because he got caught up in your karma. Caroline, enough. Are you really going to go down this path now, huh? What are you even insinuating and blaming us for? Caroline sighed deeply and closed her eyes briefly. After gathering herself, she approached her son again. It's all right now. As long as you're safe and getting better, your amnesia doesn't matter as long as we can be together again. Despite hearing it all, Amber couldn't contain her emotions. Tears streamed down her face as she turned to look at Kalisto. He remained unconscious since being sedated earlier that morning after another outburst. In her entire life, it was only in the past few weeks that she had seen Kalisto lose control and get so angry. But what hurt the most was hearing him constantly ask for Lorraine. That woman was the reason he had the accident. Amber had told him, but he refused to believe her. He didn't believe any of them. They couldn't control him. This wasn't the Kalisto Amber knew. He had always been calm, like the ocean in a lull. But since waking up and not seeing Lorraine, he couldn't maintain his usual demeanor and has gone crazy. It's so unfair. Amber screamed. I took care of him. I cared for him for 5 years until his body recovered. I was constantly by his side, panicking at every wrong breath he took because I was so scared he wouldn't wake up. Her vision blurred as tears raced down her cheeks. I love him so much. So why is this happening? I don't want this. Amanda kept trying to comfort her, showing concern and pity. Amber needed nothing but Kalisto. But why does it feel like fate doesn't want to give him to me? With that thought, Amber bit down hard on her tongue until she tasted blood. If Caroline weren't here right now, Amber would find something to take her anger out on. But not wanting her to witness her outburst, she stayed seated on the edge of the bed, her fingers tightly gripping the bedsheet. Kalisto, you can't forget me forever. You can't go back to Lorraine. I'll do everything. I'll do everything to bring you back to me. Send gift. 0. So, you really crossed paths with Henry at the last minute, when you were in New York? Mona asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. Lorraine sighed deeply and nodded, her eyes fixed on her children playing in the garden. She took a sip of her hot coffee. It's like the world's playing tricks on me. No matter how hard I tried to avoid anyone from my past, there he was. I bumped into Dad and he was with Angia. The thought of the little girl brought a pang to her heart. She looks so much like Amber, just like how Amber was when she was little. Mona exhaled sharply. It's best not to think too much about it. I know Henry, he's probably eaten up with guilt for betraying you. You are his eldest and you used to be Daddy's girl. But he always sided with your mom, who clearly favored Amber, and that's why things ended up like this. Tisk. Lorraine adjusted her position on the bench. Even so, there was something in his look, like he wanted to say something to me. I keep wondering what he would have said if I had stopped. Lorraine still felt deep pain from her parents' betrayal, especially her father's, given their past closeness. It baffled her why he chose to keep Kalisto's infidelity a secret, all for the sake of Amber. Ahem. Both Lorraine and Mona looked up as Wayne approached, dressed for an outing. "Oh, Wayne, there you are. What kept you?" Mona asked, her tone a blend of irritation and concern. Lorraine chimed in. "It's Sunday, but you seem busy. Where did you come from?" She noticed the 2 large bouquets of roses he was carrying. He handed them to Lorraine and Mona with a broad smile. "Happy Mother's Day, Lorraine, Granny." "Oh, sweet heavens." Mona's mood brightened as she took the bouquet. Lorraine was taken aback, her eyes widening. She slowly accepted the flowers, momentarily lost in thought. "Wow, it's Mother's Day. And you brought flowers?" She gazed at the beautiful red roses, taking a moment to process everything. This was the first time she had received flowers for Mother's Day, marking her recognition as a mother. The feeling was indescribable. Something bloomed inside her. "Thank you so much, Wayne," she said, her voice filled with emotion as she looked up at him. "I wasn't expecting this. I didn't even realize what today was." His smile remained warm as he sat down opposite her on the bench. "I'm glad you liked it. Next Mother's Day, maybe we can take the twins somewhere nice. How about the beach, a park, or even Disneyland?" he suggested eagerly. "When we're not so tied up with work, let's plan it, okay?" Her heart softened further at his words. "Of course. The twins would love that," she said, still admiring the flowers. "These are beautiful. Thank you, Wayne. This means a lot." Receiving flowers on Mother's Day felt different. It was a day she hadn't paid much attention to before. Now, as a mother herself, she realized it was a day worth celebrating. Memories of her struggles during pregnancy without a partner, the birth of the twins, and the first moments as a mother flashed before her. She smiled, thinking about how despite everything, she had done her best for her children. Click. Lorraine was startled and turned to Wayne when she realized he had taken a picture of her with his phone. "0." He lowered his phone, his eyes crinkling with affection. "You look beautiful right now." She blushed and turned away. "And no, I don't." "Pfft. Yes, you do. This is definitely my new wallpaper." "What? Hey." She reached for his phone in panic. "Give it to me, delete it. I must look awful in that picture." "You look great," he teased, lifting his phone out of her reach. "Hey." She couldn't help but laugh despite feeling embarrassed. "I'm not pretty, okay? Especially not in photos. My face is cursed in pictures." "If that's the case, then this is the most beautiful curse I've ever seen," he joked. Stop it, Wayne." She wanted to bury herself in the ground from embarrassment at his teasing. He was always like this, but she could never quite get used to it. She knew she wasn't that photogenic, especially without makeup. She stood up to try to reach his phone, but he quickly stood up and raised it again. With his 6-foot height, she couldn't reach it. "Wayne," she protested. "Please delete it. You know it's illegal to take pictures without permission, right?" He laughed. "I say, it's worth getting arrested for." "Why you?" "Ahem." Mona cleared her throat, looking up at them amusedly. "This seems a bit childish for your age." "Well, I'm not playing," Lorraine replied, her tone light. "Uncle Wayne." Their attention was drawn away when the twins ran up to them, calling out joyfully. "Mommy, are you and Uncle Wayne playing?" "We want to join," Lucio asked eagerly. "No, we're not playing, honey, Uncle Wayne." Lucian looked up at him with hopeful eyes. "Did you think about what Lucio and I asked you? You said you'd tell us when you came back." Wayne laughed and rolled their hair before picking them both, much to their delight. "I'll tell you later, okay?" "Okay." "Ha!" Lorraine looked on, suspiciously eyeing the 3 of them. "What kind of discussion is this?" "It's our secret, Mom," Lucian replied, winking. "Secret, huh?" Lorraine raised an eyebrow, looking at Wayne. "Well, it's a secret," he shrugged, grinning. "Ooh, looks like they're up to something." Mona commented, intrigue 0. "Just make sure no one gets into trouble," Lorraine warned, though her tone was playful. Lorraine sighed. It was likely just another of the twins' antics with Wayne. The 3 had grown very close, as Wayne always made time to play with them when he wasn't busy. That's why the twins adored having Wayne around. Lucian and Lucio giggled, clearly scheming something. "Don't think too much, Mom," Lucian said. He seemed to know Wayne's answer even without him saying it, to fill the role of their father and their Mortmy's husband. Lucian and Lucio were sharp as tacks for their age, grasping complicated matters like why they didn't have a father and why their mother was their sole provider. They vividly recalled the day he first broached the subject at the tender age of 3. His mother set him down and had gently explained that their father had passed away before she even knew she was pregnant with them. Initially, Lucian and Lucio took her word for it. They had no reason to doubt their mother's honesty. However, one night after their 5th birthday, when Lorraine had a bit too much to drink, she tearfully repeated a man's name over and over. It was the first time they had ever seen their mother break down like that. Sensing something was amiss, the twins decided to dig a little deeper. The name was Kalisto Avellino, and a quick online search revealed he was a well-known businessman and billionaire. To their surprise, the twins couldn't help but notice the uncanny resemblance between themselves and Kalisto. However, aside from his impressive business ventures and a storied family legacy, there wasn't much else about him online. Lucian and Lucio didn't know how to bring it up with their mother, who loved them unconditionally. Initially, they were angry because they felt they deserved to know the truth about their biological father. But they also understood that their mother must have had a strong reason for keeping it a secret. Their curiosity led them to search online for their mother's life status. Surprisingly, the first result was not about Lorraine as the CEO of L'Oréal Cosmetics but about the Moore family. Amanda Moore, a businesswoman and socialite, her husband, Henry Moore, a businessman and media personality, their children, famous actress Amber Moore, well-known real estate businessman Liam Moore, and their mother, Lorraine Moore, CEO of L'Oréal Cosmetics. Lorraine had never mentioned these people to them. It was odd that, apart from Mona and Wayne, they knew no one else from their mother's family. They lacked any biological father, grandparents, uncles, aunts, or cousins. They knew only a few people, all close friends of their mother. If their mother's family was so affluent, why was Lorraine working so tirelessly and alone, far from them? Was she being ostracized? As curious as they were about this matter, they still couldn't bring themselves to ask their mother, especially since she was busy with work and already worried about their health. They didn't want to add to her worries, so if there was another way to find out the truth, it would be to run and ask Mona. Although Mona didn't directly say what happened before Lucian and Lucio were born, they still got a lot of information because it was easy to catch Mona in her words and make her confess, especially since they made sure she had drunk alcohol while they talked to her. "Granny, how did our father die?" Lucio asked, looking up at Mona with bright eyes and a sweet voice. "Mommy never tells us." They must have loved each other deeply, that's why it was so difficult for Mommy to talk about our father's death. Tisk. Mona's face crumpled immediately upon hearing this. "Oh, your mommy loved your father deeply, but he was such an asshole, that's why Lorraine didn't want to talk about it at all. Hat mother few, I mean, that ruthless man left your mother heartbroken. She wasn't herself at all from the moment she found out she was pregnant until you both were born." She took a swig of alcohol and shook her head. "Oh goodness. What am I thinking? You twins are too young to understand this, and I am in no position to say things like this, Granny. How come father was a ruthless man? Did he ever bully our mom? I always imagined he was a good person, just like Lucio and me." Lucian interrupted Mona as she tried to end the conversation. "Hal," Mona nortade. "Let me tell you, it's an insult to compare you sweet kids to your father. Your good behavior comes from your mother. She was just like you when she was little. But pray you don't end up like him. He was a cheating, treacherous, shameless man." Lucian and Lucio exchanged wide-eyed looks. Lucio blurted out, "So father must have been unfaithful to mommy." Lucian nodded vigorously. "Yeah, that must be why mommy divorced him. That's why your father is ruthless. He even had the audacity to initiate the divorce." "What?" Both Lucian and Lucio reacted in surprise and confusion. "And you know what?" Mona looked around cautiously before leaning in close to whisper to the twins. "Your father had an affair with your mother's sister. They had a daughter together who I think is 3 years older than you. That means you have an older half-sister who is also your cousin." Lucian and Lucio's eyes widened further at the revelation, and they were left gaping. Several minutes passed before their minds fully grasped the deeply intriguing information. Lucian asked weakly, What did our grandparents think about this? They must have been disappointed, right? Because this is too much for mommy." "Why yeah," Lucio cried. Mona took another drink, her words slurring. "Oh no, they were all thrilled about your father and your mother's sister having a daughter. They kept their affair a secret from your mother for a long time, protecting them until Lorraine found out the truth. You could say they all bullied Lorraine, which is why she promised to protect her precious twins from those bastards." Mona closed her eyes and leaned back on the couch. "By the way, your father knew about your existence, but despite his eagerness that night, he never came to see Lorraine, or had the courage to meet his twins. Maybe his new wife and daughter were enough for him." Both Lucian and Lucio cried that night in their bedroom after Mona fell asleep. They went berserk, cursing those who had bullied their loving and caring mother. "Lucian, do you think it was hard for mom to care for us because we look so much like him?" Lucio asked sadly. "I don't think so," Lucian replied. "Mom always cares for us and loves us with all her heart. She works day and night to provide for us and still manages to spend time with us. Just because we resemble him doesn't mean it's hard for her to love, right?" Lucio's sadness began to fade. "She always takes care of me whenever I'm sick in the hospital." Yeah, that night, they vowed to protect their mother from those who had hurt her. They wanted her to forget about their ruthless father to the point where mentioning his name would evoke no emotion. Though they didn't like Uncle Wayne, who clearly had a crush on their mother and might take her away from them, they saw him as a way to help her forget about their father. Wayne liked them and made efforts to make them happy while trying to get Lorraine's attention. For them, that was good enough. If it didn't work out, they'd find another man to make their mother the happiest in the world. Lorraine is happiest when she's with you, twins, Mona reminded Lucian and Lucio when she noticed them scheming with Wayne. She blamed herself for revealing so much that night. At first, she doubted they fully understood or cared about everything she just said, but clearly they did. Thanks, Granny. But still, Lucian said. Oh, sweet heavens. Mona hugged both Lucian and Lucio. Just remember, your mom's happiness depends on you. Without you, her life is meaningless. So instead of finding her a Liu's band, focus on making her happy yourselves. She pulled back and looked them in the eye. Do things that will give her peace of mind and heart. Lucio, eat more fruits and vegetables and take your vitamins without hiding them. Lucian, be stronger, behave better, and avoid causing trouble that would worry her. How about it? Lucian and Lucio exchanged glances. Mona smiled and gently pinched their chubby cheeks. Trust this old lady. That's how your mommy will be the happiest. The hospital hallways buzzed with the usual activity. Nurses hurried back and forth, the sharp scent of antiseptic heavy in the air. Amidst this hustle, 2 nurses seized a moment to share some intriguing gossip. What happened to the Avellino and Moore families is quite the story, isn't it? One nurse whispered to another, her eyes reflecting her curiosity. You said it. But according to their maids, they got what they deserved because they were cheaters, the other nurse replied. Her voice hushed yet brimming with excitement. Really? The first nurse leaned in closer, clearly captivated. Not only that, some say they had a lot of secrets behind closed doors. Like what? Actually, it's a long story, but let's start with the head of the family. I heard he had 2 wives whom he married in different countries, then one day they all ended up in the same mansion. Wow. Interesting, Liam commented with a smirk, standing behind the 2 gossiping nurses. His sudden presence sent a chill down their spines. They both froze and turned to face him, their expressions draining of color and shock. Their eyes widened as they recognized him, their voices stuck in their throats. So, what happened when my dad brought his 2 wives to the mansion? Liam asked, his tone dripping with sarcasm and amusement. Sir Liam. The nurse who had been speaking looked as if she'd seen a ghost, and her colleague's face mirrored her shock. Liam glanced at their name tags, and his smirk deepened. Nurse Faye and Nurse V. We're so sorry, they both blurted out together, their voices shaking. The elevator dinged and the doors slid open. Maybe you should start thinking about saying goodbye to our hospital, Liam suggested with a deceptive smile, his gaze piercing. They stood there trembling, their faces blanching further. Liam clicked his tongue and strode past them out of the elevator heading towards the room he planned to visit, already focusing on the upcoming confrontation. Turning the doorknob, Liam entered the room with a determined stride. The room was dimly lit, shadows stretching long across the walls. The soft hum of medical equipment was the only sound, heightening the tension in the air. The only occupants were Kalisto, still unconscious, and Amber, sitting hunched over on the couch, her eyes red from crying. She looked up at Liam, showed him a withering look, and sneered, she's just like Lorraine. Liam thought, his eyes narrowing. What are you doing here? Amber snapped, not looking at him as she clenched her fists in her lap. Liam settled comfortably into the chair beside her, his posture relaxed yet authoritative. I traveled for hours. Get me some water. What? She stared at him in disbelief. You're so shameless, aren't you? Wed, November 27th B72, between the 2 of us, you're the more shameless one, Amber. Liam retorted with a smirk, his eyes twinkling with a mix of amusement and disdain. Why don't you greet your brother with a kiss first? Her irritation flared, her face twisting in anger. Can you just stop, Liam? Your eyes are so puffy. I guess the doctor told you that Kalisto's memory won't come back. TSK. I told you so. If I were you, I'd fix my decisions, and I said stop. She hurled a pillow at him, which he easily dodged, causing it to land on Kalisto instead. You're really annoying. She stood up to retrieve the pillow, her movements sharp and angry. She glared at Liam, fury blazing in her eyes. If you came here just to annoy me, I've had enough. I'm so angry today, I could kill someone, so can you just leave? Wow, scary. Liam crossed his legs, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Go ahead, show me if you can really do it. Liam. Her voice rose, her face contorted with rage. What do you really want, huh? Liam's demeanor shifted, becoming slightly more serious, his gaze narrowing. Father told me he found Lorraine. Amber froze, her eyes widening. What did you say? And I know exactly where she is. Liam's smirk returned, his voice slow and deliberate. Just curious how would if I brought her here to Kalisto. Would you be mad? Blow up? Go ballistic? Wait, those are all the same, haha, you react, don't you dare. Liam, she nearly jumped across the room to slap him, her hand shaking with anger. You're out of your mind. What did you say to that woman, huh? Lamb shrugged off the slap and kept on taunting her, his smirk widening. Or are you just going to shake in fear, instead of blowing up in anger when she actually comes back? Her lips pressed tightly together, she trembled with fury, ready to slap him again. But before she could, he caught her arm, his hold firm but gentle. Don't be embarrassed. It's normal to be scared, especially if you've done something terrible behind all this. Liam's smirk deepened, his eyes gleaming dangerously. What do you? She bit her lower lip so hard it bled before continuing, her voice cracking. What do you want, Liam? Liam took a deep breath and exhaled, clearly pleased by her reaction. Finally, are you ready to hear what I want, Amber? After all, it's been almost a decade since you last listened to me. But you're still reaping the benefits from the last thing. I told you. How old is Angia now? Through gritted teeth, she replied with evident reluctance, she's 8, right? Then I'll pick out a gift for her birthday. Liam adjusted his seat, leaning forward slightly. That's beside the point. Let's talk outside. Just make sure you don't bring Lorraine here, Liam, she said quietly, her tone resolute. Of course. After all, she's the one who messed everything up when that fool had the accident. Liam shot Kalisto a scornful look, his eyes cold and calculating. He can't die yet. There's too much at stake. Kalisto can die once he succeeds in his plans, but not yet. With that, Lion stood up smoothly, his movements deliberate. He glanced back at Amber briefly before heading for the door. Let's go, he called over his shoulder, his voice brooking no argument. Amber watched him leave first, her mind swirling with fear, anger, and helplessness. As the door shut behind him, she exhaled shakily, her body still shaking from the intensity of her feelings. She looked over at Kalisto, lips peaceful, unconscious state a stark contrast to her inner turmoil, before turning to follow Liam outwed. November 27th. The room fell silent after the commotion between the two people. Slowly, Kalisto's cold, piercing eyes opened. H3 Mom. Mommy. Wake up. Lorraine slowly opened her eyes, awakened by the repeated shaking and Lucian's high-pitched voice. She stretched, sat up, and groggily looked at her son. Baby, what's wrong? It was still dark outside, indicating it wasn't morning yet. Lucian was already waking her up. Mean to do it. Mom, it's Lucio. He's bleeding. I didn't mean what? Her sleepy eyes widened. Bleeding? She scrambled out of bed in a panic, her heart pounding. Her room was next to the children's, so she quickly reached it and found Lucio in the bathroom, washing his face. Lucio. She kneeled in front of him, her hands trembling. His nose was bleeding, despite his attempts to wash it away. She grabbed a nearby cloth and turned him to face her. What happened? She placed the cloth on his nose, her voice filled with worry. It's not Lucian's fault. We were just playing pillow fights and he hit me. It wasn't even that hard. Lucio defended his brother. Lorraine turned to Lucian. Lucian, what did you do? Tears welled up in Lucian's eyes. I am sorry, Mom, I hit him too hard with the pillow and he got a nosebleed. I told you it's not even that hard. We were just playing, Mommy. Lucio insisted. Lorraine's eyebrows knitted together. Not hard, but it made your nose bleed. Why are you two still playing at this hour? I read you 3 bedtime stories, yet you didn't sleep. Are you trying to give me a heart attack with worry? I do everything to keep you healthy, but you're hurting each other. Lucian bowed his head. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked Lucian to play with me in the first place, Mom. It's all my fault. I'm the one who asked Lucian to play with me. Lucio countered. Lorraine's heart ached. Well, from now on, no more playing. If this happens again, I'll separate you into different rooms. Do you understand? Yes, Mommy, they answered in low voices. Lorraine's panic slowly subsided. She had thought Lucio's bleeding was much worse. Just as she was about to calm down, she noticed that despite her efforts to wipe Lucio's nose, the bleeding wouldn't stop. She felt like crying. Seriously, Lucian, how hard did you hit your brother? Didn't he hit anything else? Lucian shook where he stood, clearly scared. And no, it was just a pillow and he fell onto my bed. Yeah, the pillow is soft, Mommy. But I just suddenly got a nosebleed even though Lucian didn't hit me hard. Stop protecting your brother. You're both still responsible, she scolded. This was the first time it happened, and her heart pounded with unexplainable fear. She pinched the soft part of Lucio's nose just above his nostril. Spit out the blood, don't swallow it. 3 Lucio spat into the sink. They stayed in that position for over 5 minutes. Lucian, did you just start playing when your brother's nose bled? She asked. Lucian hesitated, catching Lucio's gaze. But he soon confessed. No, it has been 15 minutes now, Mom. Lucio didn't want to alert you, so we tried to stop at first, but that long. Her heart sank. She quickly stood up and carried Lucio. In a hurry, she grabbed a thick jacket for him and went to her room to get her purse, jacket, and car keys. Mommy, where are we going? Lucio asked, puzzled. Fine, it's not painful. Shut it, Lucio. You don't know how serious this is, she said, rushing down the stairs. Still in her pajamas, she quickly put Lucio in the car. Lucian, lock the door, wake up Mona, and tell her what happened, she shouted. Okay, Mom. Please drive safely. I will. Now lock the door. As Lorraine drove towards the hospital, she couldn't help but worry. Her heart was racing, and each minute felt like an eternity. She glanced at Lucio in the back seat, still holding the cloth to his nose. Mommy, I'm really okay. You don't have to worry, Lucio tried to reassure her, but his eyes showed concern. Just hang in there, baby, we're almost there, Lorraine said. When they arrived at the hospital, a nurse quickly approached them. Excuse me, nurse. My son is having a nosebleed that won't stop. I need to find Dr. Cady. She's his doctor, Lorraine said urgently. All right, ma'am. Please follow me, the nurse replied, helping Lucio to the emergency room. Once there, the nurse called for Dr. Cady. Moments later, Cady, Lorraine's friend and reliable doctor, arrived. Lorraine, what happened? Cady asked while examining Lucio. Nosebleed. It won't stop for almost half an hour now, Lorraine explained, her voice shaky. The kids were playing pillow fight and this happened. All right, we'll take care of him. Don't worry, Cady assured her, as the medical staff began attending to Lucio. Mommy, I'm scared, Lucio said, trying not to cry. It's okay, baby. Dr. Cady is here. She'll make you better, Lorraine said, rubbing his back. Just be brave, okay. As Cady examined Lucio, Lorraine noticed the doctor seemed concerned about something else. Is there something wrong, Cady? She asked. Well, nosebleeds can be caused by various factors. It could be as simple as dry air or as serious as a clotting disorder. We need to run some tests to be sure, Cady explained with a hint of worry. Tests? What kind of tests? Lorraine asked, her anxiety increasing. We'll start with a blood test to check his platelet count and clotting factors. We might also need to do a CT scan if we suspect something more serious, Cady said. Oh God, Lorraine whispered, closing her eyes tightly. Please, I hope it's not serious. Cady placed a comforting hand on Lorraine's shoulder. Lorraine, I know it's hard not to worry, but let's not jump to conclusions just yet. Nosebleeds in children can be caused by many things, and often it's nothing serious. We're going to take good care of Lucio, okay? Lorraine nodded, trying to steady her breathing. I can't bear the thought of something being seriously wrong with him. Cady smiled gently. You're a wonderful mother, Lorraine. Lucio is strong, and we're going to find out what's causing this. And address it. Just trust the process. Okay. She calmed down for a moment. While Cady ordered the necessary tests, Lorraine stayed by Lucio's side, holding his hand. Mommy is here, baby, I won't leave you. Lucio looked up at her. Thank you, Mommy, I love you. I love you too, baby. So much, Lorraine whispered, kissing his forehead. Send gift. I'll be back in a minute, baby, just relax there, Lorraine said as she stepped out of Lucio's hospital room when Cady called her over. Please tell me it's nothing serious. Cady sighed deeply and looked at Lorraine with sympathetic eyes. I'd love to tell you that, Lorraine, but her expression turned serious. According to the initial blood test result, Lucio's blood counts are lower than normal. We need to perform a bone marrow biopsy to confirm if it's aplastic anemia. Lorraine's eyes widened. What exactly does that mean? It is a serious condition where Lucio's bone marrow isn't making enough new blood cells. This can cause him to feel very tired, get infections easily, and bruise more often. Heavy nosebleeds can be a sign of this type of anemia. In some cases, this condition can be very severe and require urgent treatment. To find out if Lucio has this condition and how severe it might be, we need to do a bone marrow biopsy. This means we'll take a small sample from inside his bone to check how well his bone marrow is working. This helps us understand exactly what's going on and how we can best treat him. Lorraine felt a knot tighten in her chest as she processed the gravity of the situation. Is this life-threatening? It's curable, right? She asked, her voice shaking. Cady took a deep breath before replying, yes, this can be life-threatening if it's severe and not treated properly. But there are effective treatments available. With proper care, many patients do improve significantly. The bone marrow biopsy will give us a better understanding of Lucio's condition and how severe it is. Once we have that information, we can discuss the best treatment options to help him recover. Fuck. Lorraine cursed, squeezing her eyes shut as tears began to well up. How soon can we do that? He biopsy for tomorrow. The results should be back within a week. In the meantime, we'll monitor Lucio, we can schedule the closely. Oh God, please. Lorraine clutched her chest. Cady quickly hugged her and stroked her back. Everything will be alright, Lorraine. You need to be strong, okay? Lorraine took a deep breath, swallowed the impending tears, and nodded. That's right. She calmed down a bit and said, I want Lucian to have a checkup too. Cady's expression showed concern. Has he shown any discomfort or pain? He was fine at his last checkup. No, I think he's healthy, but I still want to make sure. The twins always downplay their problems. They even tried to hide Lucio's nosebleed if it stopped quickly. They don't want to worry you, Cady reassured her. But it's good to be cautious. Let's schedule Lucian for a general checkup. Okay. Putting her fears aside, Lorraine entered Lucio's room. Mommy, what did Dr. Cady say? Lucio asked. She forced a gentle smile, hiding her pain. They're going to run another test tomorrow to find out what's going on. You don't need to worry, okay? I told you I'm fine, Mom. Lucio insisted. Of course, you are, she soothed. For she took her cell phone from her purse and dialed Mona's number, which was quickly answered. Lorraine. What happened? Is Lucio okay? She moved slightly away from Lucio's bed. He's fine. But we have to stay at the hospital for now to run some tests and wait for the results. Oh dear Lord. It's serious, JS sent it. Mona replied, her voice filled with concern. She didn't want to say it out loud. For now, we'll be needing clothes, Mona. Ask Hector to drive you here with Lucian. I need him to have a checkup. Oh no, she heard the worry in the sigh. Alright, I'll pack some of your clothes. We'll be there within an hour. Thanks, Mona. Soon, Mona arrived at the hospital room with Lucian, while Hector brought some bags and food. Mom. Lucian greeted Lorraine with a hug. Is Lucio okay now? Fine, SEC. Lucia shouted from the bed. Lucian, however, looked solemnly at Lorraine. Tell me the truth, Mom. It's my fault, isn't it? Lorraine gently crouched to hug Lucian. No, sweetheart, none of this is your fault. Don't blame yourself, and I'm sorry I yelled at you earlier because I was upset and worried. She kissed his forehead. Your brother will be fine. Dr. Cady will just run some tests tomorrow. And we'll also need to give you a checkup now. He was surprised. But nothing's wrong with me. Is Lucio's condition hereditary? That's why I also need to get checked as well. No, of course not. But Mommy needs to make sure that both of you are healthy. You know how much I care about your health. I cannot be negligent and regret it later. Oh, okay, Mom. I'll do that. Lorraine let Lucian sit on Lucio's bed and allowed him to rest from the trip. Mona looked inquiringly at her, so they both stepped outside to discuss and update the current situation of Lucio. Meanwhile, inside, Lucio slapped Lucian on the back of the head. This is all your fault. I told you didn't need to tell Mommy and wake her up. You know I always have nosebleeds once in a while, but it goes away after a while, so there's nothing wrong. He scratched his head. That's exactly the reason why there is something wrong. Frequent nosebleeds certainly have an underlying problem with your health. Go do some research. I don't want Mom to worry, Lucian. I don't want it as well, but you have to accept that you're unhealthy, and Mom would naturally be worried about you even in the slightest discomfort. What if you have a serious condition and it gets worse because we keep it a secret? Mom would die in worry. Hard-headed, Lucian wanted to return the slap, but immediately stopped himself, thinking how frail his brother was. This wouldn't happen if we just lie asleep after Mom read us a bedtime story. Lucio slumped. Yeah. Technically, I'm the one who hit you with a pillow first, so it's my fault. It's also my fault that I'm too weak. No, it's not. If it isn't your choice, it's not your fault. You're built that way. They both sighed deeply. After a while, Lucian underwent a general checkup, but all the test results came back normal and showed he was healthy. Relieved, Lorraine and Mona stayed at the hospital for just one day to keep Lucio company, and then they were soon sent home. Get well soon, Lucio. I'll see you at home, Lucian said to his twin. Right. Go home safely. Upon arriving home, Lucian rushed out of the car while Hector and Mona parked it. However, he stopped in his tracks as he approached the front door and stood still when he saw a man facing away from him, knocking loudly on their door and repeatedly ringing the doorbell. Lucian furrowed his brow, slowly walked behind the man, and looked up at his height. Who are you and why are you knocking on our door like that, sir? The man immediately turned around to face him. He glanced around briefly before lowering his head and looking down at him. Lucian was frozen upon staring up at the man. He wore a white polo long sleeve rolled up to the elbows on both arms, and black trousers, dressed just like Lucian was today. The face he always stared at on the computer screen, and repeatedly cursed, now stood before him. The ruthless man in Mona's story. Their ruthless father. See Kalisto. Mona was frozen at the back of Lucian with wide eyes directly looking up at the man. See send gift. 5. Lorraine's heart plummeted upon hearing Cady's news. I'm so sorry, Lorraine, but Lucio has severe aplastic anemia. He needs an urgent blood transfusion to control the bleeding and relieve his symptoms. The transfusion will also quickly increase the red blood cells his bone marrow isn't producing. The room spun around her as the weight of Cady's words sank in. She felt faint, clutching her forehead in disbelief, her stomach churning with anxiety. Her legs felt weak, barely able to support her. Blood transfusion. Lorraine's voice trembled as she looked up at Cady, tears welling in her eyes. But Cady sighed deeply, his expression one of deep sympathy. I know, Lorraine. Lucio and Lucian have a golden blood type that doesn't match yours. Since Rh null blood is extremely rare, we don't have it in our hospital. It's not publicly available either, and obtaining it can cost tens of thousands of dollars per unit. The price and availability depend on the urgency and specific circumstances. Lorraine buried her face in her hands, her sobs filling the room. The sound echoed off the sterile walls, a stark contrast to the silence that had followed Cady's announcement. After several agonizing minutes, she mastered the strength to speak again. I don't care how much it costs, Cady. Please, can you help me find a donor? Even hospitals worldwide struggle to find Rh null donors. Given Lucio's condition, he'll need these transfusions on a regular basis. Cady hesitated before continuing. Your ex-husband might be our best hope for a potential donor. The mention of Kalisto made Lorraine's heart constrict. She hadn't thought of him in this context until Cady brought it up. Her pulse quickened, memories flooding back. Kalisto. It had been years since she last saw the man who fathered her children. The bitterness of their past still lingered, making it hard for her to even utter his name. She had no idea what his life was like now, whether he was still with Amber, how many children they had, how big their family was, or how happy they were. Just the thought of it made her feel like she was bleeding inside. She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms, as she fought to stay composed. It seemed unfair. She was the one who had been wronged, yet it felt like she was the one receiving karma. Lucio didn't deserve tea. Why does this have to happen? She asked in despair, her voice breaking. What did we do to deserve this? After a few more moments with Cady, Lorraine left the office, her legs feeling like jelly. It seemed like the world was against her. Just when she thought she could finally enjoy a good life with her twins, after working so hard to become a successful businesswoman, this happened. She had always feared facing Lucio's disease. It felt like her prayers had gone unheard by the heavens. She could lose Lucio at any moment if he wasn't treated properly. Entering the hospital restroom, Lorraine let out a torrent of tears, staying there for almost an hour to purge the pain and resentment she felt before finding a new resolve. She couldn't afford to lose Lucio. She would die of a broken heart. She had to make sacrifices. After washing her face and trying to erase the remnants of her tears, Lorraine went upstairs and entered Lucio's room. Mommy, what took you so long? Her son complained as she walked in. 5. She forced a smile and spoke sweetly. I just got caught up talking with Dr. Cady, sweetie. I'm sorry. Do you need to go to the bathroom or something? Lucio noticed the swelling of her eyes and the redness of her nose and lips. The stress was evident in her usually neatly combed hair. He reached out and gently touched her hand, his small fingers warm and comforting. He pretended not to notice and said, the nurse helped me go to the bathroom, so I'm okay now. But it was quite embarrassing. Mommy, oh goodness. Lorraine chuckled, sitting beside him and cuddling him tenderly. How can my baby be so adorable? I got it from you, Mommy. He forced a sweet smile and hugged his mother back. He swallowed before speaking again. Dr. Cady said I'm fine, right? Lorraine hesitated, her voice cracking as she replied, of course my baby is strong. Mommy is not a good liar, Lucio thought, hiding his tearful eyes. He could see through her attempt to be strong for him, and it made his heart ache. He knew he wasn't feeling well, but kept his feelings to himself for his mother's sake. He smiled brightly and kissed her cheek. Mommy, let's hurry and go home then. I'm sure Lucian is bored at home without me to play with. Lorraine stroked his cheek and kissed his forehead. All right, we'll do that after Dr. Cady decides to discharge us. Okay. Oh, Lucio thought he might have a more serious problem than he initially believed. Though curious, he didn't have the courage to ask his mother, afraid of hurting her. His young mind raced with questions he dared not voice. Why don't we call home and ask Mona to bring Lucian here to play with you? Lorraine suggested, noticing the unhappy look in his eyes. Lucio's face brightened and he nodded eagerly. Please do, Mommy. He would just ask Lucian to eavesdrop and tell him about his condition. Before Lorraine could dial Mona's number, a sudden knock on the door startled both of them. Lorraine's heart skipped a beat, the sound echoing in the quiet room. Lorraine got up to answer the door, expecting a nurse or perhaps Cady, but when she opened the door, an unexpected face greeted her. Her eyes widened as she looked up at the man, her entire body trembling. She froze, feeling as if she had been doused with ice-cold water. Seagal, before she could finish, the man at the door enveloped her in a GHT embrace, full of longing. Lorraine, he exclaimed. His grip was so strong she could hardly breathe, let alone recover from the shock. The familiar scent of his cologne overwhelmed her, bringing back a flood of memories she had tried to bury. He held her tightly, as if afraid she would vanish if he let go. Lorraine stood motionless, her mind racing. The scent of his cologne, familiar yet distant, overwhelmed her senses. She wanted to push him away, but her body betrayed her, leaning into the warmth she once knew. November 27th G6. Lorraine's jaw dropped, unable to recover from the shock as her eyes widened. Her chest pounded as hard as it did when Cady had told her about Lucio's illness. She could barely breathe. Her vision darkened multiple times, making her feel like she might faint on the spot. Her legs felt like they had turned to jelly, barely able to support her weight. Because of that, she felt the man misunderstood her reaction and movements. He hugged her even tighter, seemingly enjoying her apparent dependence on his body. Lorraine wanted to push him away, but her current weakness rendered her attempts futile. She could smell the scent she hadn't encountered in a long time. However, unlike before when it provided her security and comfort, now it made her feel like she wanted to vomit blood due to the nauseating poison lingering in the air. Lorraine, my wife. His sweet, deep voice, which had led her to her downfall before, once again had the audacity to whisper in her ear as if nothing had happened. Her willow eyes blinked rapidly in an attempt to wake herself from this encounter. But before she could push him away, Kalisto looked at her face to face, only an inch away, while still wrapping both of his arms around her body. Without delay, he pressed his lips hard against hers excitedly. She was shocked as if struck by a thunderbolt. It felt like not only her breath had stopped but also the furious beating of her heart. 5 seconds passed, and Kalisto pulled away from the kiss to look at her with a coaxing look in his eyes. Be a good girl, Lorraine. Open your mouth for me. Lorraine's lips parted, not out of obedience but out of great disbelief. The moon once again misunderstood her and hurriedly kissed her again. His slippery tongue entangled with hers as if they were swords clashing. Lorraine snapped. With all her strength, she pushed him away. In one blow, Kalisto was forced to let go and took 2 steps back. The sound of their lips parting quickly echoed in the room, and Lorraine gasped for air, then quickly covered her lips with her cold, trembling hand. What the fuck did you just do? She screamed at the top of her lungs. Her willow eyes were wet with tears, turning bright red because of anger, shock, and disbelief. Her mind and heart were in turmoil as she glared at the man she never wished to see again but was now in front of her. He looked stunned by her defense. Kalisto was confused, surprised, and unable to process his wife's sudden reaction. Lorraine. He took a step in and reached for her hand, but Lorraine heaped back in horror. Don't even try to come near me, you bastard. Lorraine couldn't bring herself to calm down. What are you even doing here? Get out. Lorraine. Kalisto was even more confused. His eyes immediately welled up. Please, hate this prank, Lorraine. I surrender, so please, could you just stop playing with me? Fuck off. Lorraine pushed him once again, making him stop from approaching her inside the room. Kalisto refused to understand what was currently happening since he opened his eyes a few months ago. For him, everything was just a big joke, even though Lorraine's family, Caroline, and the doctor had explained to him countless times what had happened. He refused to believe it. For him, if they weren't pulling a big prank on him, everything that was happening was a 22/6 nightmare. Years, managed to have a full recovery after 10 months, and be diagnosed with retrograde. How could he be comatose for 5 VO amnesia? The last thing he remembered was that Lorraine and he went to sleep after their honeymoon. They had just gotten married after years of being in a relationship. So why? What went wrong? What's with the sudden change of time? Why did Amber claim to be his hand-see? That woman was Lorraine's sister, for fuck's sake. She even claimed they had a daughter together, and when he saw the little girl calling him daddy, he flipped out and immediately rushed to find Lorraine, not letting them catch him anymore. He could still feel the chill that ran through his spine of what happened before he finally found Lorraine's whereabouts through Lorraine's father, Henry. Mommy. Lucio, however, was startled and got scared when he witnessed his mother's reaction just now. That was the first time he heard his mother curse like that. He couldn't describe how deteriorated Lorraine's beautiful face was at the moment, like she had just come face to face with a mortal enemy who had greatly wronged her. Lorraine seemed to wake up from her shock when she heard her son's voice. She quickly turned to him, sitting on the bed, staring at her with a mixture of fear and confusion. "Who's there, Mommy?" he asked, hugging the small pillow tight. Lucio, it's," Lorraine stammered. "It's nothing, baby." Fearful of the two meeting, she quickly turned back to Kalisto, who was even more startled upon hearing the boy's voice. Who? Kalisto took hesitant steps forward to see the deeper part of the hospital room. "No, get the fuck out." Lorraine tried pushing him away once again, but failed this time, as Kalisto showed refusal. Kalisto saw the little boy who addressed Lorraine as Mommy half lying on the bed. Both of their eyes widened as their gaze fixed on each other's. "Why you?" Kalisto was taken aback. This is the kid who kicked him in the shin the other day in front of Lorraine's house. He figured that the kid was Mona's grandson. But how did he get in here faster than him? For 3 days, Kalisto harassed Mona to make her confess where Lorraine was, but she ignored him and just hid inside the house. She even called the cops on him, but he managed to get away. In the end, he got no information from her. Pi Epsilon Pi. This little boy, on the other hand, was glaring at him from the windows with murderous intent. Before one of Kalisto's called him to let him know Lorraine's location and finally left the house, the little boy's middle finger was the last thing he low. "How did he get in here?" he asked in surprise, then remembered what the boy called Lorraine. "Mommy." He froze in place, dumbfounded. Meanwhile, Lucio's big eyes widened even more as he stared at the man in front of him. The ruthless man. Their ruthless father send gift. 7M Mommy. Lucio's voice trembled as he looked at the man who stood before him. There was no mistaking it. He had seen that face countless times on a computer screen to memorize every feature. The height, hairstyle, thick eyebrows, green eyes, sharp nose, and thin lips resembled Lucian's and his own. Only one thought ran through his mind now: his mother's safety. "Mommy," he cried out again, fearing the ruthless man might take her away. "Lucio," his mother called, rushing towards him. Lucio stretched out his little arms and hugged her tightly, his gaze never leaving the man who still seemed shocked by the encounter. "Mommy, who is he? Did he hurt you?" Lucio's tears welled up as he looked at his mother pitifully. "Let's call the police on him." Kalisto was taken aback by the boy's words. He shifted his gaze from Lucio to Lorraine, unable to believe that she had already grabbed her phone and started dialing. "No." Kalisto stepped forward hastily, crossing the space between them and grabbing her phone. "Don't." Lucio reacted, his voice filled with fear. Lorraine's hand shook and her breath hitched. Her wide eyes, filled with terror, stared up at Kalisto as if he were a ghost from her past. She seemed frozen, her body stiffening as if every muscle had turned to stone. He didn't understand. What had he done to make her react this way? "Lorraine, please," he begged, pulling her closer and hugging her tightly once more. He buried his face in her neck, inhaling the scent he had missed so much. After days, weeks, and months of being confined in that hospital without his beloved wife, surrounded only by people he didn't want to see, he felt like he was losing his mind. "Let go of me." Lorraine struggled to free herself, her voice strained with a mixture of fear and anger, but he didn't give her a chance. "Wife, please, enough of this joke. I've had enough. Please," he continued to beg, his throat becoming hoarse and on the verge of tears. This was the woman he had loved since high school, the woman he had married. What had gone wrong? What had happened for things to turn out like this? He refused to believe that Lorraine could betray him, as their families claimed. He couldn't accept that he would leave Lorraine and propose to Amber just because they had a child. And he certainly didn't believe he had amnesia. The world must be playing a trick on him. "Let go of my mommy. Let go of her," Lucio shouted, using all his strength to punch Kalisto's waist repeatedly. The boy even climbed onto the bed to push him away more effectively. Kalisto winced as the boy bit his arm, which was wrapped around Lorraine's waist. Despite the pain, he didn't release his grip. His heart raced, and he felt a tightness in his chest. Impossible," he whispered. How could Lorraine have a child overnight? This must be another prank they were trying to pull off. His mind was in turmoil, unable to think straight. He couldn't face the reality before him. Lucio's anger grew as the man refused to let go, nearly crushing his mother. The boy bit harder, almost breaking the in, causing Kalisto's arm to bleed. The veins on Kalisto's arm bulged and hardened. The pain slowly brought him back to his senses, making him realize that everything was real. There was no prank or joke, just the world twisting his fate. "Ha ha." He laughed awkwardly, feeling dizzy. He lost his strength, his legs giving way. Lorraine instinctively caught him but quickly let go, as if she had touched something repulsive. Kalisto's breathing grew heavier due to Lorraine's actions and behavior towards him. His world seemed to be crumbling, his heart breaking. What went wrong? He slowly loosened his grip on Lorraine, looking at her with confusion and bright red eyes. Tears brimmed at the edges of his eyes. His voice cracked. Lorraine, how did this all happen? Please tell me you still love Live. Please tell me we're still married. A loud slap cut him off before he could finish his plea. His right cheek reddened instantly and his head snapped to the side. Shameless. How dare you, Kalisto? Lorraine's voice was filled with anger, pain, and anguish as she yelled at him. I already know how narcissistic you are, but to have the audacity to blurt this out. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you on drugs? Or did you just go crazy over the years? Tears finally escaped Kalisto's eyes. He looked at her again, full of pleading eye. He wanted to explain but couldn't bring himself to say what had happened to him. He stuttered countless times, his vision blurred, and he choked on his words. His memory was clear. He had just married Lorraine. They were happy. They enjoyed every moment of their honeymoon. They were living their dream, just the two of them. Then he woke up as if in the future, with everything gone wrong and everything a mess. He felt utterly lost, like he had lost something precious and couldn't bring it back. While he was lost in thought, Lorraine snatched her phone from his hand, bringing Kalisto back to reality. Get out of here before I call the police on you. Lorraine yelled, pointing at the door, unbothered by his pitiful appearance. Lorraine, he reached out to hold her hands, but she slapped them away. I said the fuck out of here, Kalisto. Please, he felt weak. To need you, please, what the fuck are you talking about? Get out. Mommy told you to get out. Lucio echoed, his eyebrows furrowed and eyes glaring up at Kalisto. Kalisto was startled, looking at Lorraine. Whose child is this? Lorraine was taken aback, about to answer when a series of footsteps echoed through the open hospital room. Lorraine. A man's deep voice filled the room. Mom. Another child's voice followed. Kalisto turned to see Mona, her eyes wide with shock, staring at him. Why you? How dare you? She blurted out. But Kalisto's attention was drawn to the little boy who looked like Lucio. He was stunned for a moment before realizing they were twins. That explained why he arrived faster than Kalisto, he thought. The next second, Kalisto was frozen to see the man carrying the boy. He was as tall as Kalisto, with good-looking features, the same face he remembered. This man was Mona's grandson and his childhood friend, Wayne 7. Instinctively, Kalisto felt nervous and shaken. He didn't want to make assumptions amidst everyone's shock, but a tiny voice broke the silence and shattered his world. Daddy, Lucio cried out, looking pitifully at Wayne. Daddy, this guy is harassing mommy. Please call the cops. Wayne's eyes widened even more. He was already shocked to see Kalisto after all these years, but Lucio's words took him by surprise. However, he quickly recovered, understanding what Lucio meant. Wayne moved swiftly, pushing past Kalisto to embrace Lorraine, who was now trembling. Are you hurt? He asked with concern, hiding her face in his chest when she didn't reply but silently sobbed. He then glared at Kalisto, who was looking at them in horror. Get the fuck out of here. And no, this can't be. Kalisto muttered weakly, holding his head and losing his balance. To everyone's surprise, Kalisto collapsed to the floor and fainted. Oh God. What did he do to you, Lorraine? Mona asked in concern, hugging her tightly as Lorraine lost all her strength and collapsed onto the hospital bed. Mona then handed her a glass of ice-cold water, which she quickly drank, feeling the dryness of her throat. Meanwhile, Lucian and Lucio held her, trying to keep her calm. As if it wasn't enough to hear the terrible news from Cady about Lucio's illness, Kalisto's sudden appearance shocked her to the core. The surprise left her trembling, her hands shaking uncontrollably as she tried to steady herself. Deep down, she believed she could handle Kalisto if they ever met again under certain circumstances. But he showed up in a way that suggested they were still together, hugging and kissing her like nothing had changed. He had the audacity to ask if she still loved him. She had imagined countless scenarios where he would act indifferent and ruthless upon their reunion. Never did she expect him to act so intimately, as if the past never happened and there were still lingering feelings between them. Her mind raced, and she felt her heart pound furiously against her ribcage, her breaths coming in short, sharp gasps. What possessed him to behave like that? Did he expect her to welcome him with open arms after he got her sister pregnant and divorced her heartlessly? Her face flushed with anger, her fingers clenching into fists. Her whole body tensed as if ready to explode. She regretted not slapping him hard enough to wake him from his delusion. After Kalisto passed out, an older man entered the room and hurriedly carried him out. Lorraine recognized him as Kalisto's right-hand man, Gideon. He had worked for Kalisto almost all his life and still seemed loyal to him. Gideon was one of the people who kept Kalisto and Amber's affair a secret from her, and the scars they left in her heart still bled. Mommy, he hurt you," Lucio said, sobbing, seeing her pitiful son, who tried to protect her from Kalisto despite his fear, melted Lorraine's heart. Tears welled up in her eyes as she embraced him, feeling the warmth of his small body against her. Kalisto had harassed her in front of Lucio. Now her son was trembling in fear, his eyes wide with terror. "Mommy's okay, thank you for protecting Mommy," she said, kissing his forehead. She could feel his little heart beating rapidly against her chest, his sobs shaking his whole body. "Mom," Lucian called from beside them, his puppy eyes full of questions and concern. She stretched her arms to hug him as well, drawing both her boys close. Their presence gave her strength, their love a balm to her wounded heart. "Everything's okay. Uncle Wayne is talking to the police to file charges against him. You sweeties don't have to worry," she said, kissing their faces, trying to mask her own fears with a reassuring smile. Thankfully, her boys didn't ask any questions that could add to her burden. She had prepared an answer, ready to tell them that the man was just an old acquaintance and nothing more. She knew it was cruel for the boys to never meet their father, but knowing Kalisto, she knew her children would only get hurt if they connected with him. They were still too young to face the complicated issues between their families, and she wanted to protect them from any harm. When Kalisto woke up in the hospital bed, the first thing that came to his mind was to see Lorraine. But Gideon stopped him from making any movements, keeping him in bed. "Where's Lorraine? Tell me we are in the same hospital right now." Gideon nodded calmly. "We are, Kalisto. I rushed you to get checked after you fainted from exhaustion. I thought you had a heart attack and died. Thankfully, it's only due to stress, exhaustion, and pushing your body too hard these past few weeks. The doctor advised you to rest first." "I don't need rest. I need to see my wife. We have to talk." He tried to get out of bed, but Gideon, stronger than Kalisto's current state, pushed him back down, forcing him to stay put. "Also, I talked to the police on your behalf. Lorraine's fiancé filed charges against you for harassment, assault, and emotional distress to her and their children." "What?" Kalisto looked at him in disbelief, his chest heaving and mouth agape. Gideon closed his eyes momentarily and nodded. "That's right. This initiates an official record and starts the legal process. He requested a restraining order or protective order against your Lorraine has a fiancé. That Wayne." Kalisto cut him off. "What do you mean by their children? I am her husband, for God's sake, Gideon. She wouldn't have children with another man but with me." Gideon paused before responding rationally. "Technically, you and Lorraine got divorced 6 years ago. If you're thinking that their twins are yours, I highly doubt it, since you never got Lorraine pregnant before you divorced after 3 years of marriage." "We're not divorced," Kalisto yelled, veins bulging in his neck. "Say that again, and you can pack your things and leave." "How long are you going to keep this up, Kalisto?" Gideon asked, his patience wearing thin. Kalisto's thin lips pressed tightly together, and he glared at Gideon. His face was flushed with rage, his eyes burning with intensity. "Fine," Gideon conceded, "but you cannot leave this room to find your wife again. The police are still here. I suggest you let them leave before you go. Once their investigation is complete, they 11 come back with a warrant. But don't worry, I already contacted your attorney." Kalisto fell silent, staring blankly into space, his mind in turmoil. Gideon watched him for a moment before speaking again. "You need to rest first. I'll leave Bob to guard the door. I have somewhere to be." Kalisto didn't respond, lost in his thoughts. Gideon left the room, reminding Bob to guard the door and not let Kalisto out no matter what. He then walked off and dialed Cady's number. "Where are you, Doc?" He heard a sigh on the other end. "Your boss caused a commotion. Let's talk outside." He hung up and took the elevator to the first floor, exiting the hospital building. He found Cady, wearing a white coat, standing to the side. He walked towards her. "Thank you for telling me Lorraine's location. That saved me a lot of time and prevented Kalisto from going crazy." "Prevent him," she laughed sarcastically. "If he didn't go crazy, the police wouldn't be roaming around our hospital." "Gideon." "Oh night." He sighed. He couldn't tell his half-sister about Kalisto's current condition. "But still, thank you. I know it was hard for you, especially with your close friendship with Lorraine. Don't think I told you where Lorraine was for Kalisto's sake. I don't care about him. He could die from insanity, and I wouldn't tell him anything if he wasn't needed here in the first place." "What do you mean?" He frowned. Cady faced him seriously. "His son needs his blood immediately before his condition gets worse. I haven't discussed this with Lorraine yet, but make her understand later." "Huh? Wait, can you explain what's going on first?" he asked, confused. "Kalisto and Lorraine have twins. One of them developed severe aplastic anemia. He needs a blood transfusion, and Kalisto's golden blood type is the only perfect match for now. Gideon's eyes widened as he processed the unexpected and crucial information. The shock registered on his face, his mind racing to grasp the implications of what he had just learned. No way. Gideon's eyebrows furrowed in surprise as he stared intently at Cady, scrutinizing her to see if she was telling the truth. When he saw the seriousness in her eyes, he shook his head. But Lorraine and Kalisto got divorced without any news of her pregnancy. Are you sure the twins are his? 100%. You know how in love Lorraine was with him. She was excited to share the news with him that day, but she accidentally found out about his affair with Amber. That's why she kept her pregnancy a secret and raised their children on her own. Cady explained, her voice heavy with emotion. Lorraine went through a lot. She barely survived, like a zombie, after all your betrayals. Thankfully, with the help of Mona and me, she moved on and worked hard for her kids. I'm on her side, so it's hard for me to spill these beans without consulting her. But I know she'll be stubborn about this while her son needs his father's blood. That's the only reason I want you to bring Kalisto here. But I didn't expect him to cause a racket, harassing Lorraine. What was he thinking? As Gideon processed Cady's explanation, he let out a heavy sigh. He hadn't expected such a twist of events for both his boss and Lorraine. Wow. I really thought Lorraine had children with Waynel, he blurted out. Well, there's a 99.9% chance that Wayne will be Lorraine's twin's father in the future, so almost the same. Cady shrugged her shoulders. Gideon was taken aback. No way. He shook his head and then turned serious. If Kalisto and Lorraine had children together, then they should get back together. What? Are you serious? Cady's face twisted in anger. After all the crap he put her through. She held her forehead, trying to calm herself. Gideon, don't start pissing me off right now. Since you told me something important about Lorraine, I'll also tell you something about Kalisto. I don't even care about that guy. He has retrograde amnesia. Cady, he cut her off again. He forgot everything that happened between him and Amber. His only memory is when he and Lorraine were still together. Cady was taken aback. You can't be serious. No way. You're just playing. I wish I were, because I'm tired of dealing with his stubbornness to see Lorraine. I'm dead serious, Cady, he said. Kalisto had a car accident and he was in a coma for 5 years. His physical condition just recently went through full recovery. Nothing happened to him over the years except that he was fighting for his life in the hospital until the day he woke up. Their family kept this a secret from the public, which is why no one knows. They even hired a clone for him. Cady didn't believe him. She couldn't bring herself to accept this nonsense. She snapped. So what if he has amnesia? Is that why you suggested they should get back together? Have you forgotten that Kalisto cheated and hurt Lorraine deeply? Even if he lost all his memories and suffered, it doesn't change the page. You were there, you know the crap they put Lorraine through. If you're just using his amnesia as an excuse to get the back together, it's better for him to be a good father to his Luds instead. Gideon Cady for a while, contemplating his thoughts before breaking the tense silence between them. Kalisto still doesn't know that the children are his, since I also convinced him that they're Wayne's, he said calmly. I don't think it's right for us to decide what will happen next. I know I wronged Lorraine, but can you convince her to at least talk to 9? All right. But before then, don't say anything to Kalisto just yet. For sure, he needs to rest for now. Giving him more stress will harm his psychological health. Cady pursed her lips. I know I prayed a lot for him to just die, but I'm thankful he's still alive. I don't know what would happen to Lorraine if Lucio didn't get the treatment he needs. He's too young to suffer so much. Lucio. The kid with the life-threatening disease. Yes, that's correct. Oh, he's also the same kid who bit his father's arm until it bled. I saw how deep the teeth marks were. Really? Lucio, the sweet and timid boy, did that. Not Lucian. The other one with a temper. Gideon thought for a moment. Definitely Lucio. The other one with a temper kicked his father on the shin and flipped him off for no reason. Cady's lips rose in amazement. Oh wow. One knew they were smart boys. How's that smart? My guess is that they are ill-mannered brats. How dare you? She got mad. They were just protective of their loving and caring mother. Besides, they don't even know Kalisto, so that's how they reacted to him harassing their mom. Technically, yes, that would be the case for the sick one. But I think the one with a temper holds grudges against their father heir, as if he knew everything about him. Gideon sighed. If you could see how angry he looked at Kalisto before we even got to the hospital. Although, I understand if Lorraine planted the idea of what he did to her in their minds. Lorraine simply told her twins that their father died a very tragic death, and that's it. Cady cut him off, glaring at him. Lorraine isn't the kind of person to talk bad about someone who scarred her deeply as it pained her. But if that's the case, the kids should know who their father really is. He heartlessly divorced her for Amber, her own sister. Gideon's eyebrows met. Don't act as if Lorraine didn't do anything wrong in the first place. What are you talking about? He clicked his tongue. Well, of course, Lorraine wouldn't tell you about her wrongdoings, only her good side, right? She scoffed. So you're blaming her for his cheating? You're saying that Lorraine is the problem, is that it? Wow. Just wow. You've only proven that men are jerks. Don't act like women are always right. Obviously, Lorraine has been playing the victim card too much when in fact what? What did you say? Cady's face registered even more anger. The fact is she's the victim. Just because Kalisto went through some accident doesn't mean he automatically deserves pity to play the victim here. Gideon laughed sarcastically, realizing that Cady knew nothing about Lorraine's affairs that drove Kalisto mad before he even agreed to Amber's wishes. He was about to argue in defense of his boss when a nurse interrupted their chat. Doc Cady, Doc Sem is calling for you. Cady let out a harsh breath, trying to calm herself again, and looked at him coldly. Call you soon IFT once Lorraine agrees to talk to you before we make any move. Remember not to say anything to Kalisto just yet, she said, walking past him with the nurse. Gideon was left standing outside the hospital building, taking in several deep breaths and spending a few more minutes outside to cool off. Between him and Cady, he knew he was the one who knew more about what happened 6 years ago. It was Lorraine who ruined her marriage with Kalisto first. Cud gift. 20. When Gideon walked back inside the hospital and was about to enter the elevator, he accidentally bumped into Wayne. Only the two of them were inside the elevator, and a few seconds passed in silence. Gideon's lips curled into a smirk as he broke the silence, saying, I'm surprised you actually hit on Lorraine, knowing she was your old friend's ex-wife. Surprised, after Kalisto hit on Amber right before his wedding to Lorraine, and then they secretly had a daughter. Nothing should surprise you anymore. Wayne replied with a tope of sarcasm that cut through the air. It was an unintentional mistake, Gideon muttered defensively. An unintentional mistake to put his dick on his fiancée's sister. Don't give me the drunk card. They both wanted it. Isn't that why he just easily tossed Lorraine out like trash? Lorraine was at fault, oh please. Wayne snapped. He glared at him, his jaw clenching. No one is to blame but his dickishness. You're really going to defend that man even though he's clearly in the wrong. He messed around with sisters and ruined their relationship. Because of what he did, she cut ties with her own family she loved and dedicated herself to. What kind of sane man would do that? In his anger, Wayne grabbed Gideon by the collar. And now what, huh? He's coming back like he owns the place. He got tired of Amber, so now he's returning to Lorraine's life to destroy her all over again when she's finally getting her life back together. Gideon's jaw tightened as he tried to remove Wayne's grip on his collar. His eyes glared back fiercely. You know nothing. What do you think? That Lorraine didn't ruin Kalisto's life too? What the fuck are you? The elevator's door dinged and slowly opened. They both stopped arguing when they saw some doctors and nurses waiting. Gideon left the elevator angrily, casting a hostile glance at Wayne before heading to Kalisto's room where he found him sleeping. You did what? Lorraine's voice rose in disbelief as she absorbed Cady's confession. Lorraine, please understand. It was all for Lucio. We need to treat him urgently. And it just so happened that my brother, Gideon, reached out asking about you. It seemed like perfect timing. Please, do it for Lucio. Don't make decisions for me, Cady. What you did was outrageous. You didn't even warn me beforehand. Do you have any idea what this has done to the kids? Kalisto showed up and harassed thee in front of Lucio. And before that, he caused a scene at Lucian's house. Lorraine's anger flared. What were you thinking, doing that without telling me? I know I made a decision on your behalf, but as Lucio's doctor, had to act when Kalisto was nearby. Cady replied, trying to stay calm. I didn't have time to tell you because Gideon called me right after I shared Lucio's diagnosis with you. They had already reached your house. You two were bound to meet eventually. What's the point in delaying if Lucio's condition is severe? It will only make it harder to find another donor. Lorraine, I know it's hard, but that doesn't mean I can't manage it. I can use all my connections and money if necessary. I don't need calling here. And my children certainly don't need him. The moment I ask for his help with Lucio's condition, he'll find out he's their father and start interfering in our lives again. Tears streamed down Lorraine's face. You don't understand the pain I feel because of what they did. It's easy for you to say. I don't want my children to get hurt, Cady. I want to keep them safe from all the trouble they bring. Cady felt a pang of sympathy but forced herself to remain firm. He had always supported Lorraine, understanding her deep resentment. Yet now, she had to be rational, especially with Lucio's life at stake. As a doctor, she knew the severity of his condition. 20. Lucio is in pain right now, Lorraine, Cady said sternly. Just because you can't see it and he doesn't show it doesn't mean he isn't in danger. You're risking his life by delaying this. Are you going to wait until his condition worsens before you turn to Kalisto? I know how hard this is for you, but don't let your emotions take over right now. Just because Kalisto finds out about his son doesn't mean he'll take him away or have rights over him. Lorraine's anger was palpable. Her lists clenched, nails digging into her palms. Her bright eyes were now filled with unshed tears, her normally pale face flushed with intense emotion. Lorraine's sobs filled Cady's office, her chest heaving with each breath. Cady, too, felt moved to tears by Lorraine's distress. She didn't want to impose but was deeply concerned for Lucio. She couldn't bear to see him caught in his parents' turmoil. Cady had always prioritized Lorraine's well-being, but now the children had to come first. Mona was also resentful towards Kalisto and would likely support Lorraine in driving him away. Wayne was unaware of the situation's severity. Even if it angered Lorraine, Cady insisted on Kalisto's presence. Taking a deep breath, Cady said, Kalisto seemed to harass you because he thinks you're still his wife, Lorraine. Lorraine's brow furrowed and she glared at Cady. If only I had a weapon at that time to wake him up. We've been divorced for a long time. Why does he still think I'm his wife? He's insane. He's not insane, but he has amnesia, Cadley said seriously. Before I talked to you, I checked him. I'd like to think he's just pretending, but it really seems he's forgotten everything. The way he talked to me, even the events blurred in my memories, they seemed so fresh to him, as if they just happened yesterday, when in fact, it was 6 to 10 years ago. Lorraine paused, her sobbing interrupted by shock. What confusion and disbelief washed over her face. Cady continued, Gideon told me he had a serious car accident 6 years ago and was in a coma for 5 years. After his recovery, they discovered he's suffering from retrograde amnesia, a condition where part of his memory was erased and only some things remained. Unfortunately, he remembers you the most and almost nothing else, including his memories of Amber and your divorce. She sighed deeply. That's why he acted strange and harassed you. He thought you two were still newlyweds. Lorraine felt as if she'd been doused with ice-cold water, frozen in place, her gaze fixed on Cady. She searched Cady's face for any sign of jest, but Cady's serious demeanor left her wanting to believe. Her mind struggled to accept the words she'd just heard, immediately thinking it impossible. How? Lorraine blinked rapidly, clutching her dizzying head. You must be kidding me, this can't be happening. Send gift. 21. Cady said you wanted to talk to me. Lorraine asked, her tone flat and emotionless, as she sat across from Gide cafeteria of the hospital. Lorraine's displeasure was clear on her face as she faced Kalisto's right-hand man. She leaned back lazily in her chair, crossing one leg over the other and folding her arms. Gideon mirrored her posture, his expression equally blank despite being the one who had requested this serious conversation. I believe Cady has already told you about Kalisto's condition. Gideon sighed heavily and looked away, a hint of frustration in his voice. He's suffering from amnesia. The only fresh memory he has is from when you were newlyweds, which is why he's been searching for you. He's tried to escape the hospital multiple times, where Amber and the others are keeping a close watch on him. They won't let him go because they think he's not in his right mind. Lorraine swallowed secretly, her face betraying no emotion. She listened carefully to Gideon's explanation, his words confirming what Cady had tried to tell her the other day. If I hadn't helped Kalisto escape to find you, he might have gone completely mad. To him, the 6 years without seeing or talking to you feel like just one night. His world changed in an instant and he can't accept it. It was all because he lost his memory in that accident. Gideon's eyes searched Lorraine's for any sign of understanding. If that hadn't happened, we wouldn't be here right now. Kalisto needs you, Lorraine. If the truth comes from you, he'll believe it. You know how deeply in love you two were, inseparable back then. Lorraine let out a deep breath, her hands cold but steady, as she picked up the nearby coffee cup and calmly took a sip. Minutes passed without her saying a word, prompting Gideon to speak again, this time with less patience. Lorraine, are you really going to be stubborn now? I heard from Cady that your child needs Kalisto's blood too. My child, she emphasized coldly, her gaze sharp. My child alone. Even if you say that, he's still their biological father. He'll find out eventually. Let him have a chance to be your children's father. You don't need to forgive Kalisto or take him back because he has amnesia. You just need to explain things to him and help him understand the past so he can accept that he's now with Amber and they have a child caught in the middle. If it comes from you, he will believe it. Explain to him the disgraceful things he did back then. Lorraine scoffed, gently setting down the coffee cup. She took a deep breath, her lips curling into a bitter smile. Fine. I'll make sure his amnesiac brain absorbs all the foolishness he and Amber, along with my family, his in-laws, and even you, did. Gideon frowned, grinding his teeth slightly. Right. Make sure to tell him everything. Every single detail, Lorraine. Don't leave out a single, one-sided story. Lorraine raised an eyebrow, not fully understanding Gideon's implied meaning. She knew there was something he wasn't saying directly, but all the events were fresh in her memory, so she wouldn't leave out any details. I'll gladly do so, Gideon, she replied coldly. Gideon thought she understood his implication and scoffed at her audacity. He might think she considered herself superior and proud of ruining her relationship with Kalisto. She was as shameless as the rumors said. Regarding the ongoing investigation, please drop all the charge your fiancé filed against Kalisto. I've explained why he did it. If Kalisto were in his right mind, he wouldn't have done it. He's in a fragile state. Fiancé. Lorraine was puzzled for a moment before realizing he was talking about Wayne. He was probably mistaken, but she was too tired to explain. 21. I'll talk to him. Lorraine stood, picked up her coffee, and adjusted her chair. Let's meet again the day after tomorrow, at the same time and place. Bring him with you. She saw a flicker of relief on Gideon's face, which he couldn't hide. He nodded, then seemed to remember something. Wait, Lorraine. I forgot to mention that your father was the one who gave me your house address. He said he saw you at the hotel, and followed you without your knowledge. He wanted to talk to you, but knowing you wouldn't want that, he stayed back. After so many years, he just wants to know how you are. If you have time, he hopes you two can meet. Lorraine's eyes dimmed upon hearing this. Her eyes grew colder, and her heart hardened. If you have nothing else to say, then goodbye. She left without waiting for his response. Calmly, she walked into the bathroom to wash her hands absent-mindedly, as if there was some disgusting dirt lingering on them. She stared blankly at the flowing water from the faucet, her expression empty. Her eyes were tired and slightly swollen from hidden tears. Ever since learning about Lucio's illness, Kalisto's sudden appearance, discovering his condition, and her complicated situation, she just wanted to surrender to fate. Now, she was too exhausted to show any more emotions and felt like going with the flow of life. She had just learned to live again, but now she felt like a dead person once more. Now that everything had come to this, what else could she do? Even if she didn't want to, she knew Cady was right. Their priority should be Lucio. Despite the chaos, Lucio deserved their attention the most. Lorraine decided to swallow the pain this time. Nothing else mattered but the life of her son. Her feelings, past traumas, and even Kalisto's condition had nothing to do with this. Lorraine clutched her chest and closed her eyes tightly. Everything will be okay. 22. Lorraine returned to Lucio's hospital room and found Lucian reading a vocabulary book to his brother, who was starting to drift off to sleep. She paused at the door, staring at her two sons lying side by side on the bed, sharing the same pillow and blanket. Their closeness was undeniable, almost as if they were one soul in two bodies. The thought of breaking any news to them tightened her chest. At the end of the day, she knew they'd figure it out. They weren't as naive as they looked. From what she heard from Cady and Mona, it seemed her boys already had an inkling of what was going on, even though she hadn't told them anything directly. Cady was right. She couldn't let her emotions get the better of her now. She had to be smart and composed in front of her sons, especially since she didn't want them to worry about her. Sweeties, she called out as she approached them, a smile on her lips. She sat at the edge of the bed next to Lucio. Mommy, Lucio murmured sleepily, wrapping his arms around her waist. Mom. Lucian stretched out his hand, and she pulled both of them into her embrace. In 5 years or so, she was sure she wouldn't be able to hug them like this anymore. They were growing taller and bigger each day, and soon they wouldn't fit in her arms like they did now. The thought made her sad and lonely. Mom, have the police arrested that bad guy who attacked you yet? Lucian asked, assuming that was what had happened. She stroked his hair and smiled. Do you hate that bad guy, baby? He nodded emphatically. I hate him. I wish he'd get life in prison so he could no longer harm you again. Her heart warmed at his words. I wish that too, baby. But unfortunately, that's not how it's going to work. He pouted, disheartened. I know. Then his eyes filled with determination as he looked up at her. But don't worry, Mommy. Lucian will protect you and Lucio. I'll never leave your side so that bad guy can no longer harm you again. Lucio, now more awake, turned to Lucian. I should be the one protecting you and Mommy from that guy. I was heroic when I bit his arm and it bled. Lucio, you're still weak now. You can't protect us if you just keep biting him. What if you get more bacteria from him? We don't know how dirty that man is. Well, I learned other skills too, not just biting. Lucian sighed at his twin brother. Sometimes I really doubt if you're as smart as me or not. What? Lucio exclaimed. What I did was heroic. And that was why you lost more blood and the nurses had to keep checking on you yesterday. Well, at least I protected mommy while you weren't around. Lorraine couldn't help but laugh as she watched her boys bicker. She hugged them tighter and showered their smooth faces with kisses. Mommy. That's ticklish, they complained in unison, giggling. 22. You know what? Mommy would love it if you both protected her. But she'd love it even more if she's the one protecting you from any harm, she said emotionally. Oh, Lucian said, alert. Mom, are you saying that there's harm coming our way? Lorraine's smile faded slightly. Both boys looked up at her with angelic faces, waiting for an answer. She took a deep breath and tried to keep her tone gentle. Lucio, would you hate me if I wasn't honest with you both and lied a few times? The boys flinched and looked at each other for a minute before looking up at her again. There's no way we could hate mommy, Lucio said. Even if mommy is a secret agent or spy from North Korea, we'll always love you. Yeah, no matter what mom did, because she loves us and takes very good care of us, there's no way we'll hate her. Lucian agreed. We'd only hate the people who try to take us away from mommy. Lorraine's eyes filled with tears. A sense of relief escaped from her mouth as a sigh. Her heart was filled with warmth and she couldn't help being emotional. She laughed through her tears. What should Fido? My boys are so mature and intelligent. How could someone like me deserve you as your mother? Mommy, don't say that. Lucio wiped her tears. You're the best mother ever. I love how you tuck us in bed every night, read us bedtime stories, and in the morning you always prepare breakfast for us before you leave. You never forget to feed me my medicine and Lucian's vitamins. You always come home with pasalubong, always remember our favorites, and never fail to spend time with us no matter how busy you are. Mommy, even if it's only a minute with you, we always love every single moment of it. Lucian nodded at his twin brother's long speech. That's right, Mom. You always do your best to protect us too, and I've seen how worried you are when it comes to us. I'm pretty sure you only lied to protect us, and because you're too worried na mapapahamak kami o masasaktan. Lucian said with a sweet smile. But Mom, Lucio and I are brave and tough like you. When we're together, it feels like there's nothing we can't handle. It as much as we believe in you, Mom, we want you to believe in us too. Yeah, Lucio agreed. Be honest with us, Mommy, that's okay, because we will not blame you or hate you. Lorraine's lips trembled. She adjusted her position and caressed their cheeks. So you both already knew, didn't you? She took a deep breath and continued. Okay, let me tell you still. The truth is, your biological father is alive. He's not dead. His name is Kalisto Avellino. I was once married to him and had a deep relationship for about 10 years. After he found out about my pregnancy, he divorced me, so I made a decision not to tell him and instead hide you away from him. The boys listened quietly, showing no reaction, proving they already knew the story and were not surprised by it. I moved to this city with Mona and raised you in silence. I wished our life would be peaceful, but her eyes filled with tears as she looked down at their small hands in hers. Lucio's health is at risk. He has severe aplastic anemia, which requires blood transfusion from someone with a rare blood type. And I'm so sorry that I lied and told Lucio he's fine because he's not. Lucio, upon hearing this, leaned his head into his mother's shoulder. We already know, mon ami. Actually, Lucian sneaked into Dr. Cady's office to check my condition. Why, you did what? Lorraine's eyes widened as she processed their confession. Lucian scratched his head and avoided her gaze. Lucio asked me to though. Right, Lucio smiled. Because I saw how tad you were, Mommy, so I was curious about my condition. It turns out that it's because I developed that disease, but worse than the usual case because I have a rare blood type. Ruthless father is here, Mommy. Because Lucio needs his. Lucio pretended to be nauseated. Comment. Here's the thing, kids. Lorraine took a deep breath before continuing her explanation. Lucian and Lucio listened intently. Your biological father, he actually didn't know of your existence until now. Confusion registered on Lucio's face, and he was about to speak when Lucian placed a hand on his shoulder. Lorraine didn't pay much attention to that and went on with her explanation. He had a very tragic car accident 6 years ago, and he woke up just a year ago with retrograde amnesia. Most of his memories were wiped out because of it. And unfortunately, he thought that the two of us were still married. The faces of the twins twisted in confusion. It was difficult to describe their expressions as they processed what she had said. She remembered having the same reaction when she first heard the news. She spoke again amidst their silence. He got here because, according to his right-hand man, Gideon, he was looking crazy all over for me. That guy said that your father couldn't accept everything that's happened to him, so he needed me to be the one to tell him. With his eyebrows furrowed, Lucian asked her, Mom, are you sure he's not just faking it and playing with you because he wanted to get back together? Lorraine's lips parted, but she didn't know what to say. Honestly, even though Cady and Gideon had explained it to her several times, she still found it hard to believe. She couldn't process the idea that such a thing could happen to Kalisto. But on the other hand, she saw no logical reason for Kalisto to fake amnesia and pretend to be clueless in front of her. Her indifferent and prideful ex-husband, worthy of all the privileges he got from the world, wouldn't go crazy just for her. Especially since Lorraine knew that Kalisto already had someone else. He had Amber and Angic. So what else would he want from her when he was living a perfect life? Besides, Lorraine saw the sincere, devastated look on Kalisto's face that day. He genuinely looked confused and lost, as if he couldn't accept her way of pushing him away. He looked fragile and weak, and he even fainted in front of all of them, something he wouldn't deliberately do. Lorraine remembered that Kalisto never showed weakness to her. He was the type of person who would keep his pain to himself so he wouldn't appear weak, fearing that his weakness could be used against him. She remembered how it took time for him to open up to her and finally give in. He was once dependent on her, but later he grew colder and more rigid like a wall. Thinking of all that, Lorraine was convinced that Kalisto, if not driven mad over the years, really did get into a car accident that caused him to lose his memories. She sighed and responded to her son, Don't worry, baby, we'll figure that out. For a moment, silence reigned. She watched her two sons as they thought deeply. Then Lucio spoke up. So he doesn't know us yet, and he doesn't know that I have anemia, he said, raising an eyebrow. Mommy, can't we just not tell him at all? I'd like to, because honestly, sweetie, I don't want to see, hear, or smell the heck of that man. Her face softened. But I can't be selfish right now because you needed him. Darn it. He slammed the blanket. Such bad timing. I hate that he will know our existence, but there's really nothing we can do about it, Lucian said. Don't worry, Lucio, it's not us who should be frustrated now but him. Maybe this is his karma for abandoning Mom and us just like that. I swear, I'm not calling him father or anything like that. Wed, November 27th GF. 23. You don't have to, sweetie, Lorraine replied. Lucio, you don't have to force yourselves to like that man or treat him as a father. But still, I also don't want you to be as hateful as me, okay? Just treat him like how you treat a normal human being. Oh, Lucian and Lucio looked at each other, the corners of their lips slowly lifting. Got it. After talking to her sons, Lorraine tucked them into sleep and didn't forget to tell a story. When they both fell asleep, she couldn't fall asleep herself, staring out the window of the hospital. The city lights twinkled against the inky night, casting a soft glow into the room. She felt the cool breeze from the slightly open window brush against her skin, sending a shiver down her spine. She thought of what Lucian had said. Maybe this is his karma. She let out a breath and rubbed her aching chest, steeling herself. The weight of the day's revelations pressed heavily on her shoulders, but she knew she had to stay strong for her boys. Everything's okay. She shouldn't be the one to be extremely nervous now because, in the first place, she hadn't done anything wrong. She shouldn't be the one scared and hiding. She shouldn't be the one distancing herself, like someone without a face to show to those who wronged her. She shouldn't let herself be affected by Kalisto anymore. Later that night, she called Wayne to tell him to drop the charges against Kalisto. He was puzzled and his tone was clearly angry, but she explained everything over the phone. Like her, disbelief and suspicion were evident in his voice. She didn't convince him to believe her, and rather told him to investigate if the matter at hand was the truth before ending the conversation. After thinking hard and pacing back and forth in the room, Lorraine finally decided to call another person who could give her information. Hello. Lorraine, is this really you? The man on the other end greeted. Yes, Dad, it's me. God, why you? Oh, he sobbed and gasped for breath. Although his voice was older, it was still very familiar to Lorraine. She could picture his face, wrinkled with age, but still carrying the stern expression she remembered from her childhood. She swallowed hard, listening to her father's attempts to speak, but failing because of his broken voice. The sound of his sobs echoed through the phone, stirring a mixture of emotions within her. Her eyes burned, but she didn't cry or become emotional. Her feelings had hardened, remembering their last encounter, when he made her feel worthless and didn't care how much he had hurt her then. I need to talk to you. Send gift 0. 24. How long do I have to wait, Gideon? Kalisto's impatient voice cut through the silence. I've been patient enough. I've been here at the hospital for days. I can't take it any longer without seeing or talking to Lorraine. Why won't you let me go to her? What if she leaves and we have a hard time finding her again, huh? Our Gideon rolled his eyes. His ears had been bleeding from Kalisto's incessant shouting for days, all because Kalisto was desperate to see his ex-wife. Today was the day Kalisto and Lorraine would meet, but he still had a few hours to wait. Gideon sighed, glanced at his watch, and finally focused on his boss, who hadn't stopped frowning since he started complaining. "Why don't you take a shower and put on the decent clothes I gave you?" Gideon suggested with a raised eyebrow. Kalisto's eyes brightened slightly. He stood up from the bed with a hint of eagerness. "Are you taking me out now?" "Later. So get ready." He frowned. "Why later? Just do it, Kalisto. Before I change my mind." Tisk. Kalisto snatched the towel, his glare sharp and unforgiving. "Last time I checked, I'm the boss here, not you. You're not supposed to control me." Gideon's lips twitched. "Part of my job is to protect you, so bear with it for a little while longer." With no other option given his current condition, Kalisto grudgingly followed Gideon's instructions. He had already processed that the current time was 6 years prior to the year he remembered. This man had aged considerably, which likely explained the changes in his behavior. Gideon, who had once been his loyal follower, now dared to stand up to him. Kalisto didn't like his attitude now. He hurried through his shower, making sure he looked presentable. He groomed himself meticulously, but hours passed without Gideon taking him out, causing his clothes to wrinkle and his hair to become disheveled out of sheer boredom. "Oh, it's time," Gideon said. "Follow me out." Kalisto's eyes lit up, and his face came alive with excitement. He stood up faster than lightning and followed Gideon to the door. Kalisto's legs itched with anticipation as they stepped outside. He rushed ahead of Gideon into the elevator, ready to press the button for Lorraine's floor, but Gideon tapped his hand and instead chose the first floor. "What the? I'm going to see Lorraine." "Gideon, we're not going home without me seeing her." "Who says we're not going to see her?" Gideon snapped, standing tall as the elevator descended. "She's probably in the cafeteria by now. If not, then we'll wait for a few minutes." Kalisto was taken aback. "So you talked to her? Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you're going to talk to her later anyway," Gideon replied. Kalisto's face twisted in confusion. Gideon hadn't mentioned anything during his hospital stay. He had been indifferent, not caring about Kalisto's wishes. Now, it turned out there was already a set time for him to see Lorraine. 24. The thought made his heart race. He still couldn't understand why Lorraine had reacted so strongly when they met. Although that encounter made him realize the gravity of his past actions, he believed Lorraine, who had always been merciful and soft-hearted towards him, would forgive him, and they could be together again. Lorraine was too kind-hearted to hold a grudge, considering how deep their relationship had been. Beside him in the elevator, Gideon glanced at Kalisto's hopeful face. He sighed, shaking his head at how bright and excited his boss looked to see Lorraine. The elevator dinged, and they stepped out on the first floor. Kalisto rushed ahead, but he didn't know the direction to the hospital cafeteria, so he had no choice but to follow Gideon, who walked at a slow pace. "Oh, please. Will you hurry up now?" Kalisto's frustrated shout echoed down the quiet hallway, drawing stares from passers-by. Gideon didn't care and continued walking at his slow pace until they reached the cafeteria. There were few people around, and the space was wide and open. Kalisto scanned the area, but couldn't find his wife's beautiful face. His brow furrowed again, but before he could ask Gideon, he saw him walking towards a familiar man and 2 familiar boys. Following Gideon, Kalisto recognized Wayne, dressed in casual attire, with his twins. Kalisto froze, his eyes widening. He took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling rapidly. Gideon had told him that Wayne was Lorraine's fiancé, and that they had children together. These were the twins he remembered who had cursed and bit him. "Where's Lorraine?" Gideon asked, sitting in the empty chair across from Wayne. Wayne, who had been cheerfully playing with the 2 boys, straightened up, his expression turning serious. "She went to the bathroom," Wayne replied. "Oh," Gideon said, turning to Kalisto and gesturing to the empty chair next to him. "Take a seat now." Reluctantly, Kalisto sat down, his eyes filled with questions and curiosity as he stared at Wayne. "Why the hell are you here when I'm going to see my wife?" "You're not needed here." "Wayne, you mean your ex-wife?" Gideon raised an eyebrow and smirked sarcastically. "Of course, I'm needed here, in case you start harassing her again in front of her sons." Kalisto's gaze shifted to the boys, who were now glaring at him. Their cheeks were puffed, and their thin lips pressed tightly into straight lines. Although they were cute, Kalisto found them annoying. Their presence made him uneasy. He didn't want to believe that these kids carried Lorraine's flesh and blood, even more so Wayne's. Anxiety grew inside him, as if he was being swallowed by fear. He couldn't calm down until he heard Lorraine herself deny what Gideon had told him. "So you're already here?" Lorraine's voice echoed through the cafeteria, and Kalisto's heavy breathing stopped. He turned towards the voice and finally saw her. He stood up to greet her, but Lorraine walked quickly to the empty seat next to the boys, glaring coldly at him before sitting down. 25 Kalisto was undeterred by Lorraine's actions. He crossed the distance between them, ignoring the eyes of the onlookers. Standing behind Lorraine, he bent down to embrace her tightly. The speed of his actions left them momentarily unable to react. He felt Lorraine's initial shock, but it quickly dissolved into a lack of emotion. "Baby, I miss you." Kalisto buried his face in the crook of Lorraine's neck and shoulder, inhaling the scent he had missed for so long. He closed his eyes, savoring the feeling of holding his wife again. "I miss you so much." Lorraine remained silent. He could feel the coldness emanating from her, tightening his chest. Instead of letting go, he tightened his arms around her even more. "I'm sorry, please forgive me. I couldn't have done what they said I did. Please, I know you can't leave me, Lorraine. Please, baby, forgive me. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm so content with everything that's happening," he pleaded emotionally. Silence reigned for a long time before Lorraine finally broke it with a cold, indifferent tone. "Get off," but Kalisto didn't listen. He knew Lorraine was putting up a barrier between them. He hated the feeling of her being so close yet so far away. This wasn't the Lorraine he remembered. Kalisto recalled Lorraine as sweet and affectionate, someone who almost never wanted to be apart from him. Whenever she saw him, she would jump with joy, greeting him with the tightest hugs. Now, she couldn't even bring herself to touch him. "Get off of her, man," Wayne suddenly ordered coldly. He stood up to push Kalisto away, forcing him to release Lorraine. Kalisto straightened up and released Lorraine, pushing Wayne in frustration and overwhelming emotion. "Who do you think you are, huh? Who are you to act like this with my wife?" he shouted, pushing Wayne again, causing him to lose his balance and nearly fall to the floor. Before Wayne could speak again, Kalisto landed a hard punch on his jaw. "You're probably the one to blame for all this. You took my wife from me." He didn't let Wayne fall to the ground but grabbed him by the collar, shaking him violently. His eyes blazed with anger as he glared at Wayne. "Oh no, Dad!" Lucian and Lucio shouted simultaneously. "Damn it, that's enough, Kalisto." Gideon stepped between them. It was easy for him to pry his boss's hands off Wayne, because Kalisto's body hadn't regained its former strength to fight him. "Fuck it. Let go of me, you asshole." Kalisto fell to the floor as Wayne's hard fist unexpectedly hit his jaw, causing him to collapse. Their commotion echoed loudly in the spacious cafeteria, grabbing the attention of the few people around and those passing by. "What? Can't you accept, you jerk, the betrayal you did to Lorraine? You even impregnated her own sister." Wayne shouted angrily at him. "How dare you think that after everything, Lorraine would still be your wife? Who are you to feel entitled to her now?" Kalisto's fists trembled with anger at the accusation he knew he hadn't committed. "I would never do that to Lorraine." He quickly got up, his eyes red as he turned to his wife, who now looked at him with a blank expression. "There must be a misunderstanding. Lorraine, believe me, I could never replace you with Amber. She's 25, been chasing after me for so long, and I've never been interested in her, believe me. I couldn't just have a child with her. That's ridiculous." He looked at her intently with pleading eyes. He waited for her response, hoping she would side with him. "What a jerk." But the other twin broke the silence with a sneer. Lorraine then sighed. "Unfortunately, you did commit that ridiculous act, Kalisto." What? His heart sank. "No, it can't be." Lorraine calmly averted her gaze. "Why don't you sit down and let's discuss this without violence? My children are present, so please don't make me call the police on you once again." Tears welled up in Kalisto's eyes. He couldn't speak as Gideon forcibly pulled him back to his seat. Meanwhile, Gideon shot Lorraine a sharp look. "You shouldn't have brought Wayne with you. You and Kalisto should be the ones to talk. There's no need for an outsider. Our dad is not an outsider." The twins responded loudly. Gideon fell silent and lowered his gaze to the two boys, who looked identical in every angle, even in their clothing. The only difference was that one looked more defiant, while the other had a paler complexion. Gideon turned his gaze to Wayne, who proudly sat back down next to the boys. Then he looked at Kalisto, who now seemed to have lost all the color in his face. His eyes widened with shock. Of course, Gideon hadn't told Kalisto about being the actual father of the twins yet. He wasn't in the position to be the one to spill the tea, but only Lorraine. But on the other hand, Gideon understood that the twins already regarded someone else as their father. They probably had been brainwashed by their mother to hate Kalisto by now. That's why their fierce eyes kept glaring at him. Kalisto tried to reach Lorraine's hand that was resting on the table, but she quickly pulled it away and hid it under the table. Lorraine began to speak again after a few seconds. "Gideon, Wayne, could you please move to another table for a while and leave us to talk without any disturbance?" Gideon stood up immediately. All right, Wayne followed with a sigh. If Kalisto crosses the line again, I'll not hesitate to punch him in the face again. Thanks, Lorraine casually replied to him. When the two left the table, Lorraine, Kalisto, and their children were left. The reason Lorraine brought Wayne with her was to prevent Kalisto from coming at her again, and to have someone look out for her kids in case Kalisto lost control. Baby, Kalisto pleaded. Please believe me, I couldn't have betrayed you. And I know you couldn't have betrayed me either. Unfortunately, it already happened, Kalisto, Lorraine said seriously. It's over and done with. You already had an affair with Amber. Everything you've heard since you woke up from the coma is true. Amber carried your daughter, Angia, and later on divorced me. Her eyes and voice grew colder. Gideon, you'd believe it if it came from me, so here it is. Before you had an accident, we had a divorce, meaning we're no longer together. I'm no longer your wife, and you are no longer my husband.